For the June 2018 Committee on Accreditation meeting, will the Secretary please call the roll?
Thank you. Jose Luis Alvarado, Jomalyn Belatayo, Suzanne Borges, Deborah Erickson, Cheryl Forbes, Bob Freely,
Present.
Anna Moore, Gerard Morrison, Margot Pensaval, Iris Riggs, Kelly Scone, James Webb, Commissioner Rodriguez. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So as a reminder of the broadcast, this meeting is open to any individual who wants to join us, either in person or via technology. So it is possible that we may have some individuals watching or listening via technology in real time. Further, this meeting is being recorded and will be archived and available on the Commission's website on the page dedicated to the Committee on Accreditation. So because of this, we still need to use the microphones, and just as a reminder, be sure you push the button to activate it. It's the green button. Once it's lit, you know you're on. You can always turn it off afterwards. If we don't do that, then those listening on Zoom won't be able to hear the comments, and nor will they be recorded. Okay, moving on to item 2. Item 2 is the approval of the agenda. Just a few things on the agenda so we're all aware of what's going on. There are a couple of time certains. On item 18 is at 1 p.m. The individuals are coming from the East Coast. They're joining us actually online on the East Coast. So we have to keep it as a time certain. And then we have item 15 scheduled for on or around 1:30 p.m. And there are also some individuals who have to leave early today. And I think we will still have a quorum after all that. So I think we'll be in good shape. So having seen the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda for the June meeting? So moved by Committee Member Forbes. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Erickson. All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 3, and that's the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. It would be appropriate for any committee member not in attendance at that meeting to abstain. Here we have one abstention. We have two. We have 2 abstentions. 1, 3, 4. Let's be sure we get that. Okay, so we had Committee Member Webb, Erickson, Pensaval, and Morrison. You guys, you're partying somewhere? Do we miss a party? We missed something. All right. Okay. Having said that, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting? So moved by Committee Member Alvarado, seconded by Committee Member Riggs. Any discussion? All in favor? All right. Opposed? All right. The motion carries. Item 4 is now the opportunity for co-chair and members to report. Anyone have anything you'd like to report and share with the committee? Oh, okay. I thought maybe you wanted to jump in. Okay. Yeah, co-chair Moore.
I will be starting a new position in July. I have accepted the offer to be an elementary school principal. Yep, at a case 6 in the district's called Pioneer Olivet, and it's just a little teeny tiny school in the country. And I'm super excited. I'm going to be working with a great team, and we just a lot of community building because of the fires. Where the district was the district that was burned out, so we've got our work cut out for us next year. Test scores are a little bit low, so we know what to do there, and we have a really great superintendent and a great team, and I'm really excited to open this new chapter.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. See, it wasn't so bad. Anyone else have anything you'd like to report? Committee Member Borges.
Well, I'm going to report for our member Kelly Scone, who couldn't be here today, and I just wanted to let you all know she got a position as an assistant principal in Huntington Beach. Yeah.
Great, wonderful. Wow. Nice. Excellent. We'll be sure to send her our good wishes. And do we have any other reports? Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn over to Terry Clark. We have 3 members who have served with distinction with the committee, and she'd like to go ahead and do a presentation.
Good morning. We would like to take this time to really acknowledge and thank the contributions of 3 of our outstanding COA members whose terms are expiring at the end of this week. Margot Pensaval, James Webb, and Kelly Scahn. Both Margot and Kelly were appointed to the committee in 2014, and they've served a full term. James was part of the alternate pool and was asked to serve the remainder of the term that had been filled by Yvonne White, but was vacated when she resigned late last year. We're eternally grateful to all 3 individuals who bring their unique perspectives, their deep expertise in their respective areas, and their unwavering commitment to the success of California's public schools and our students. Among other important aspects of educator preparation, Margot reminded us each meeting and through each accreditation report for the need of substantive, deliberative, and meaningful clinical practice experiences for all prospective educators. At each meeting, James assured us that the COA was examining programs to ensure that a high-quality mentorship program for all new teachers and administrators, knowing the critical importance of giving these new educators appropriate guidance and support in those first years of their practice. That payoff from the relationship of the mentor and the new teacher or administrator comes in so many ways in years to come. And even though Kelly could not be here today, she always brought the perspective of the K-12 educator into our discussions. We want to thank her as well for her dedication and commitment. On behalf of the Commission, the members of the COA, and staff, I would like to just state once again how grateful we are to all 3 of you for the time and effort you've put in and your sharing of your expertise with the education community in California. We know that tomorrow's educators and their students will be better prepared because of your participation and your tenacity to insist on quality preparation programs. We wish you much luck in all future endeavors, and we certainly hope that you're able to continue contributing to the work of accreditation in the future. Thank you, and we have a little something for you, for those of you that are here. So if we could get you to come up, James and Margot both. Margot first. Thank you, Terry. Oh, it's so nice to have you. Thank you. Now we want to get our co-chairs over here. Okay, co-chairs. So nice. Oh, I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah.
And I will get the chair out of the way.
Again.
Okay. It's digital. You can take as many as you like.
That's good.
Right.
And you can throw them away easily, right?
Let me get on this side. Terry, why don't you get it? Oh, wait. Do we want to do it without us? And then...
No, it'll be nice having you in. Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
we'll be in 2.
There we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Oh, sorry.
You turned it off?
Okay, I have an iPhone. You just push the top and it works. But
Oh.
I will use it. This is a different model. Sorry.
You just push
Yes.
that button in the front there.
The red button.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
1, 2.
We do have a time certain. Let's go.
Well,
Go.
it's because the TV's behind you guys. And again, there you go.
All right. And then James.
Can I just say one thing? I
I
just
just
want to.
microphone. If you move to a microphone, you can say one thing.
And then we got
That's my whole job, is telling people to talk on a microphone.
I just want to thank everybody. I've learned so much being on this committee, and it's been a wonderful experience. And I just want to thank everybody from being my teachers and helping me learn professionally. Thanks.
Cozy up again.
Cozy up. Come on, Bob.
Boy, girl, boy,
Cozy
girl,
up.
boy.
Oh, boy, girl, this is excellent.
1, 2, 3. Nice.
Great. I'll make sure to get that to you. Okay.
Oh, that's yours. I pushed mine.
That's right.
It'd be rude to take your chair. And there is a similar frame and certificate for Kelly, and it's being sent to her since she wasn't able to attend. Unless, are you going to see her, Suzanne? So it will be sent with Suzanne towards Kelly.
And just a couple of words. Thank you both for your service. James, got the opportunity to know you briefly, but it's been an enjoyable experience. And even with your brief time on the committee, I've learned a lot just from what you've had to say and off our discussions. Thank you. Margot, I'm going to miss discussing lots of things on our rides and your family, but it's been a lot of the fun rides, so I've learned a lot from you as well. So thank you for your work. All right, moving on. Item 5 now is staff reports. And staff does have a few items to report about. So how about Ms. Hickey? You ready?
Well, I'll start, but I think Terry's going to jump in too. But I'll start by saying thanks to all the three departing COA members. I really enjoyed working with you. I met Margot way back when USC was going through its last accreditation visit. So it was wonderful. And that was a really complicated one because USC's in a lot of places and doing a lot of really interesting things with technology and observations and things. So I've really enjoyed and learned a lot from you, Margot, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to collaborate with you. And James, thank you for being willing to be team leads in the future. And we've already grabbed him and said we need you. Exactly.
Now you know, right?
And team members, because we can't let his expertise go. I mean, we just absolutely can't. Just a really phenomenal educator, and we are so happy that you're going to continue on with us. So we appreciate that. And Kelly, I will miss Kelly as well, and I'll send her a card. But I just wanted to say that from staff. We've enjoyed working with all three of you. So to the more mundane stuff. So the budget got signed from what I'm reading in the papers. And Terry, why don't you talk about the residency money? Because that is important.
Yes. When we last talked, there had been $100 million on the table for shortage issues, and that changed. And it changed multiple times. 50 million of it was for teacher residencies for special education, and 50 million of it was for local solutions for special education. The local solutions money disappeared in one of the sides of the legislature, but then in the conference committee, the 50 million for local solutions came back. So there's $50 million for LEAs to submit grants for local solutions to help them identify, recruit, prepare, induct new special education teachers. And we're working on an advisory to send that out to the field. In addition to that, instead of getting $50 million for residencies, the budget, when it was signed, there was $75 million for residencies. The residencies broadened out from just special ed to definitely special education and STEM. I have an email in because all I know of is special education and STEM. There is a possibility it also includes bilingual, and I'm working on getting that answer, and I will let you know once I know that answer. This $75 million, along with the other $50 million, can be expended over the next 5 years. It doesn't all have to go out in the first year. So we expect that we will have some grants that will go over time. And we are working on how we're going to get this all moved forward because it is challenging because the residencies is, again, Prop 98 money. And so it requires LEAs to apply for and get the grants. But the LEA is going to have to work extremely closely in what we're calling an authentic and true partnership with IHEs, because the IHE is going to be the entity that provides the teacher preparation part of this residency program. So hopefully we'll have some information out by the end of this week, and LEAs and IHEs will start talking to each other, and then they'll be ready to respond to an RFP once we get those up and posted. Yes.
So my question is, I've heard residencies used in a couple of different ways, and I've heard it being used that a residency is where the teacher is the teacher of record and they get additional support, or the residency is where they're in the same school for the whole year and they're supervised closely. So how are we using it here?
It is the second. They are in the same school for an entire year. It might be two different classrooms in the school, but it is one school. The mentor master teacher is very carefully selected, trained, and has a very robust role in that the master mentor teacher is evaluating as frequently as the university supervisor. It is a full year of practice co-teaching with that master mentor teacher. It is not as the teacher of record. That is an intern program in California, and that is not what this residency is about. And it also is a cohort model, which is in special ed is a little bit more challenging. So in a traditional residency, when we would think about maybe 5 to 8 teachers at the same school site, all as residents. Well, that's not going to work as well with special ed. So we're going to have LEAs are going to really do some careful talking. And in many places, I think a county office may be the entity, or an LEA may want to submit a proposal for a consortia, because to get a cohort, you're going to need more school sites than you would if it was a multiple subject or single subject residency program. So we're still trying to work out all those details. There's those little nitty-picky things, such as Does it count as recruiting a new special education teacher if you're recruiting a general education teacher to become a special education teacher? Things like those kinds of questions. So we're working through all those now, so we'll be able to get a solid RFP out. Yes, say Luis.
So have there been conversations about how this can dovetail into the integrated programs?
Yes, this could definitely work with integrated programs. The integrated programs are the integrated undergraduate programs where people are starting as undergraduates, often in the junior year. There's not as many integrated programs that truly started at the freshman year. It's more often at the junior year. And this would definitely be a possibility where in local solutions, the LEA could propose that they're going to pay the tuition for the junior and senior years and pay for the teacher prep, something like that. In the residency, you couldn't be a resident until you're in your last year. You have to, because you're going to have to satisfy subject matter and basic skills to be in the classroom as a resident for that full year. So that could be either the 4th or 5th year of an integrated undergraduate program.
I don't know if this has been thought about or discussed, but I'm just asking, as we're looking ahead, would a residency program count, I'm thinking ahead to induction, in terms of an early completion option candidate? Right, so I'm just wondering if that has been thought about or discussed yet.
That is definitely extremely reasonable. What we really want all induction programs to understand is if you have a candidate who is experienced and exemplary, they know what they're doing, which if you're getting a resident who's been in a school from when school started in September or August until when school ended, that's another component of residency. They are there the entire school year. It is highly likely that person would be ready for an early completion option, and they would do a 1-year induction program. And again, the new induction programs, meet them where they are, work with them, take them forward in their practice. So if that makes complete sense that there would often be early completion options for these residents.
Terry mentioned the integrated programs. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deb.
So you mentioned that one of these was over 5 years. Are both of them over 5 years?
The money can be expended from us over 5 years, yes. And so the whole chunk does not necessarily go out this first year.
And it can be for all of those activities you talked about, identification, recruitment.
Local Solutions is very, very open. It's taking the governor's approach to subsidiarity of making decisions closest to where it's going to impact. And so the districts are going to make the case for what they want to do. So that being said, they're going to have to show a need for special education teachers. They're going to have to show that they have actually a solid plan, not just, I think I might want to do pie in the sky. But yes, so it is very, very flexible related to special education teachers, finding them, preparing them, keeping them, signing bonuses for them, any of that.
And the residency model also, because I'm thinking that there will be marketing involved and with that. So that grant also will include some of those options.
The residency is a little more challenging in some ways, because if you talk with Bank Street College or the National Center on Teacher Residencies or any of those other groups that are looking at residencies, almost always the entire first year is planning and putting it together. And we're working to see how much of the $75 million is available to be in planning grants, because this first year of getting the partnership, really figuring out how the classes are going to be so tailored to really meet that district's needs, yet still meet the credential requirements. So I think there is going to be some planning grant opportunities. We have a couple places. I saw a great presentation on Bakersfield City School District. Amazing residency program that's already in place with the CSU Bakersfield. They might be ready to actually apply for the $20,000 per teacher to actually have the grant, whereas many other places in the state, I think, are going to need some planning time. And that will be a possibility also.
Terry, when you first started this, you talked about that there's a need for partnerships. And I think that it's really important to highlight that that's really the word partnership, not pass-through. That we have had other Prop 98 funds that have, in some cases, been really pass-throughs. And as you guys are all starting to think, maybe for your own institutions, I think that it comes through really clearly in this legislation that isn't the expectation.
And there is a notice going out in advance of the RFP just to get people to be able to start thinking about it while we figure out what goes in the RFP. So I think, Terry, you mentioned that. So be looking for that. Will that be in the PSDE news? Is that where that's going?
It will be announced in the PSDE news and posted on our webpage, and we may even try to send it to all superintendents also. The challenge here is for both of these is that the LEA is the entity that is proposing the process. Right. But clearly, it has to work. They have to work closely with IHEs too. Cheryl.
So I have a couple of questions, and the first one is, the way I understand it, STEM, for example, might be defined in a particular district as elementary as well as secondary, or is it limited in any way to specific?
That's still a little bit unclear. We need to have some conversations because when the legislature puts that out there and says STEM, I mean, we only have SHM in California. We don't have STEM. We don't have any technology or any engineering. We have science and math. Right. It is unclear if it's exactly which credentials are going to be included. So we're working on that.
And my second question was the definition of an IHE. So would this also include community colleges who are becoming more and more active? And
at this point in time, there are no community colleges that are approved by the commission to offer educator preparation.
Okay, so it has to be someone who's an approved.
It is IHEs. Right now, we're looking at 4-year institutions that hold regional accreditation.
Okay.
Any entity that holds regional accreditation as a 4-year institution. And a commission-approved institution. It's not that someone else can't apply, but if you're a new institution, it's going to take you about a year to get approval, and the grants are going to end before they're actually up really ready to go. So
if an IHE, for example, had a partnership and part of an integrated program or some other fashion with a community college,
that's completely fine.
Would still be the
yes.
Good morning. Anthony and Angel are in Sacramento right now. Oh, you're kidding.
Please,
can you hear us? Can you mute your? Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully they've muted.
Okay,
good.
You. Thank you, Vince.
Yeah, almost all of the 41 integrated programs have very deep community college partnerships because everywhere, a good percentage of your candidates, half to maybe 3/4 even, are starting at a community college and then moving to a 4-year institution. It is the 4-year institution that is still the responsible entity.
Okay, so moving on the list, Terry mentioned the integrated programs, and I just wanted to mention that the integrated program grants that those institutions that were building an integrated program, a 4-year bachelor's degree with the teacher credential, they are starting up, and we want to get a sense of who's starting because they don't need to go through a brand new approval process if they already offered the credential and have been approved for the credential. So there will be a survey going out this week because they don't have to report to us in a formal reporting until late next fall. And so we want to just get a sense of which institutions are going to be up and running by this fall. So we'll be sending out a survey to get a good sense of that. And then I wanted to mention that I want to acknowledge staff. You notice in item 6 there are lots of withdrawals. And part of that is because June 30th is the date that we determine what the annual accreditation fees are. And part of that is also because we've been doing a lot of work around preconditions. So we hear from institutions that say, well, we didn't turn one in for that program because we're not running it. So I want to acknowledge Michelle and Iori from staff and all of the consultants because I think every single consultant has touched at least one institution that says, no, we're really not running that program. So it really is a cleaning up of our database, and we're really, really happy that so many institutions are making it clear which programs are actually running and which ones aren't. So that's really helpful. And that's a lot of work because it's a lot of one-on-one conversations. I wanted to mention that our August meeting, I was unclear whether or not we were going to have an in-person meeting or a teleconference meeting as we had the last couple of meetings because we're kind of waiting on a couple of things. But it looks like we're going to just do a teleconference meeting to make sure we approve the new programs. So what we need in that situation, you might recall, is that we need to list everybody's place that you're going to be, because a member of the public can come in and join you at your home or your workplace. And so we will be sending something out asking you where you are. If you're on the road, it is impossible to kind of do that at a Starbucks or something like that. So we would rather, I'd hate to say it, not participate, but it's just too difficult unless you can find a place where you know exactly where you're going to be. So, just because of the reporting requirements. Yeah, August 6th. Yes. Okay. That's fine. We'll send out a doodle poll, make sure that we have a quorum, and then we will, it'll probably be a very short meeting because the main purpose is to approve programs that want to be up and running, where they have gone through. So it'll be a very short meeting. So we appreciate anybody who can actually attend. And I just wanted to mention, we have wrapped up now from last year, and we're kind of doing the end of the year stuff. We are drafting thank you letters for all of our team leads and all of our many volunteers that participated. So we're getting those out this summer. We are looking at the surveys that team members did at the end of their site visits to, talk about what they think went well and what we might need to tweak for next year. We are doing all of those end of the year things, but we're also moving forward full speed for next year. And I'm going to let Catherine talk about all the things. But one of the things we're doing, we are starting BIR training. We have a lot of work to do between now and when we have that first training, but we have 3 trainings set up, 90 individuals that will be participating in some fashion, August, September, and October. And Catherine, why don't you talk about the rest of the kind of gearing up for next year?
So just as a reminder, BIR training has changed a lot in that the training that Cheryl just talked about is for site visit training. All 90 of those individuals participated in program review last year and are new to the system. So we were able to bring in a lot of people who haven't participated before and who've done a really amazing job as program reviewers. So we're excited about, obviously not all of them will be on site visits, but some of them will be. The site visits for the yellow cohort, which is the 2018-19 year, all teams are full. We have all of the teams assigned and ready to go. Now that's this moment in time, right? So you never know what can happen. But for right now, it looks good, and having them, the transparency for the institution of the reviewers reviewing their program and then being there for common standards as well. I think we're going to really see how that truly plays out this year. We have also identified through survey all but one institution, I think you'll hear about them in a little while also with other late things, has talked to us about when they're going to prefer to have their site visit for 2019-2020, the orange cohort. So we've scheduled those, and a survey is going out either this Friday or next, depending on, we're kind of waiting for this one institution, that will go out soliciting reviewers, and that constitutes part 1 of the training. So things are, it's kind of a treadmill that as long as you just keep moving, you don't have to run, but if you stop, it's going to fling you off the back. So you just keep going, and I think that it's taken us several years. You never saw the map that we had up in the office. We had this huge timeline, and the last little bit has been torn off the wall. So I think with yellow, as predicted, we're fully operational.
That's awesome. That's great.
And Catherine retires in February, and I'm very, very sad because she does all this logistical work. It's so amazing.
I'm trying to create this situation where I'm irreplaceable for one little project.
There you go. I'm almost done with my list here. So, in looking forward to next year, we already held a Common Standards refresher for the Common Standards folks that are coming in next year's site visits. We have 3 of those, so we've done 1/3 of those, and that's really helpful just to remind them to talk through the new template, to those kinds of things. So that went really well. We've also already held a team lead training. And Erin Sullivan's not in the room, but she did a lot of work on preparing that. So we are moving forward. There always is something more to do. We're never quite done. It's kind of exciting work, but it's also exhausting sometimes. And I think, let's see, what else? I think that's probably enough for right now. So we're moving forward. So we will be training, having a training for the 3 new members of COA sometime this summer. So I'm trying to get a doodle poll together to see when they can come and be available. So that is all for now. Did I leave anything out that any staff member would like to talk about? Great. Wonderful.
No, thank you all for the comprehensive report and the remarkable progress that just continues to be made. I mean, I'm truly staggered with knowing how thinly dispersed the staff is, and the ability to get so much done is just really quite remarkable. So thank you and congratulations. We do have a 10 o'clock time certain, so we're going to jump ahead to item 9. Do we have all the representatives for item 9 here? That's the report for the Tehama County Department of Education.
By Zoom, so we have to see if they're here.
Okay.
Vince, can we tell them we want to go ahead and unmute Sarah and whoever from Tehama?
Yeah. So
hi, Sarah.
We're both here. Yes, we are both here.
Okay, so we're good to go?
Yes. So I see that both Maria and myself are unmuted. Would you like me to start?
Okay.
Sure, let me just do the quick introduction. So item 9 is the report of the required follow-up visit to Tehama County Department of Education. Consultant Dr. Sarah Colombini is being joined. She's joining us by technology, and we'll introduce the item. And also joining her is the institutional representative, Maria Elena Diaz, who is the Director of Induction Program. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? Seeing no recusals, Dr. Colombini, would you please begin?
Okay, good morning. This is an 8th-year report for the Tehama Department of Education. A site visit was held on May 1st through the 4th of 2016 at the Tehama Department of Education located in Red Bluff, California. As a result of that site visit, the Accreditation site visit team recommended the status of accreditation with stipulations, as there were concerns with Common Standards 1 and 2. In addition, there were concerns with the Designated Subjects Program Standards 3 and 5. This site visit occurred prior to the implementation of one set of induction standards. So there were concerns with General Education Induction Program Standard 2 and Special Education Induction Standards 2, 5, and 7. So again, this is back when we had 2 different sets of induction program standards. During the 2017-18 academic year, Tehama worked to address all of the stipulations and was predominantly successful. A 7th-year report was delivered at the June 2017 COA meeting, and at that time, the COA determined that one stipulation should remain, which addressed Common Standard 1 educational leadership. So all the other standards were deemed met at that time. So over the course of this past year, leadership in teacher preparation at the Tehama Department of Education has worked diligently to establish and implement an advisory council that is actively involved in the coordination and governance of the educator preparation programs. Presented in this item is the 8th-year report that outlines the specific actions that leadership at the Tehama Department of Education has taken to address the concerns that were identified by the accreditation team. And it's my recommendation that the 8th-year report be accepted and that the stipulation be removed and the status of Tehama Department of Education be changed to accreditation. With that, I know that we have Maria Diaz, the director of the Tehama Alliance for Teacher Excellence, on Zoom with us. I will let her answer any questions that you may have regarding the report that you have in front of you that details the steps that they've taken to address the educational leadership standard.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Dr. Diaz?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
This is Dr. Yes, we can. And so this is an opportunity for you to go ahead and say a few words about the follow-up report.
All right. So as Sarah has mentioned, we have been working diligently to really meet this last stipulation. And we serve 9 counties, 30,140 square miles, and approximately 120 districts with very diverse structures and such as single school districts, large school districts, urban and rural districts, charter schools, as well as a correctional facility, state prison. And these challenges have led to the development of a multi-prong approach so that we can continue to increase the stakeholder engagement. And instead of holding single regional meetings with a committee, we've taken on the approach of multiple groups of stakeholders and multiple opportunities to engage in that organization, coordination, and governance of our 3 induction programs. And as you can see in our report, we have listed 19 examples of program activities, which represent our efforts to continue to develop meaningful and sustainable stakeholder engagement in the organization, coordination, and governance of all of our professional programs. And so you can see that we've really made some efforts to communicate the importance of the partnership with our districts through that MOU, and have really encouraged and defined some responsibilities that the district can take on to be able to really fully partner with us and set mentors and our candidates up for success. And district representatives for our advisory council, as well as district coordinators, have really, I think, fostered that communication and that involvement from our stakeholders. We have, since our site visit, really increased the number of meetings with our advisory council, and we meet 3 times a year in 2016-17 as well as 17-18, and have really reached out with, again, these multiple opportunities for involvement and engagement and feedback through mid-year surveys, end-of-year surveys. Also involved our leadership team within our program with feedback after each of our seminars, as well as planning meetings to help with the organization and the coordination of our program, meeting with individual districts to have conversations about how we can best support the needs of their teachers, as well as their mentors, and integrate the district initiatives into our program. And then having sometimes countywide meetings with administrators where we provide some of those updates and share some of our program structure, our vision, our goals, and really provide those opportunities for feedback and input so that we can best meet, again, the needs of the mentors and the teachers that we serve. And so we continue to build on that and do as much as we can. And I think we have really strengthened our partnerships, and we'll continue to do so that we can involve our stakeholders more and be very transparent with our program and how we serve them.
Thank you, Dr. Diaz. This is an action item, so it's an opportunity now for the committee to engage in discussion and questions. Committee Member Pensival.
So I just want to say that I was reading your document and I kept saying infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. And I kept saying to myself, where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? And I got to the end and there is so much good evidence. So I think you really put it on paper. So I want to just say, that congratulations for doing the work to involve your stakeholders, and I think it's all right there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Committee Member Erickson.
I too would echo that sentiment that the evidence was there, and thank you for all of your work in putting that together and gathering that feedback from a wide swath of your stakeholders. Perhaps I missed it in reading through all of the documentation, but I didn't see the attendance of all who were in those meetings and in what capacity that they attended all of those meetings. So I was wondering if you had that evidence, and it might have been helpful to see so that we could see, because you do serve so many different constituencies.
We do have some attendance sheets. Are you referring to our advisory council in particular, or our focus groups, or which aspect of our?
All of those. In looking through all of the documentation, I saw the agendas and then I saw the meeting minutes, but there was no evidence of who actually attended the meetings or what feedback they specifically were given.
Dr. Erickson.
And maybe I missed
there
that.
There are links to attendance lists of who attended the different meeting sign-ins.
Then I'm sorry, I missed that because I was looking at the actual reports and the
in number 3.
Like item 10 to number 10 has a list of attendees. It's throughout. There's many links.
3 has it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? This is an action item, so is there a motion to accept the follow-up report? And I will stop there. We have a motion from Committee Member Forbes, seconded by Committee Member Borges. We should actually put this and just say it's a motion to accept the recommendation of the report.
And to remove the stipulation.
Correct. So as stated, it's to accept the report from Tehama County Department of Education and remove the stipulation addressing Common Standard 1, and then change the status of Tehama County Department of Education to accreditation. That's the full motion, I believe.
Perfect.
So does that work, Committee Member Forbes? And there's a second by Committee Member Borges. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations for the outstanding work and the progress. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we can move back to item 6. So let's item 6, and that's the approval of the program approval recommendations. As you look at item 6, you'll see it's organized into 5 sections, and we'll go through each section by section. Please note the item is ordered so that all the action items are listed sequentially in Part 1, sections A, B, and C. That's at the beginning of the item. And then Part 2, sections D and E are for notification purposes only, and no action is needed. So let's start with Section A, the program approvals. This is an action item, and there are 3 new programs for approval. It's California State University, Monterey Bay, the Bilingual Authorization Program in Spanish, Los Angeles Unified School District Bilingual Authorization Program in Spanish, and then Loyola Marymount University, Bilingual Authorization Cantonese. Are there any recusals? We have one recusal, Committee Member Alvarado. Okay, so is there a motion here to accept the new programs for approval? So moved by Committee Member Malatayo, seconded by Committee Member Webb. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
In Section B is program withdrawals. This is an action item, and I believe it is. I'm just thinking I have to recuse myself.
There's a lot on
Chapman is listed there. So, Anna, do you want to go ahead and then read Section B programs? I have to recuse myself.
Recuse from Chapman. Okay.
All right. Withdrawal of the following programs has been requested by the institutions offering them. The date of withdrawal will be the date of the COA's action, or, if requested, up to 6 months after the date the COA is notified of withdrawal. Do we need to?
You don't need to read them all.
Yeah, it's
They're all listed.
It's a very long list.
Any other recusals, though?
Yeah, any other recusals? No? Okay, this is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve the withdrawals for all the institutions listed in this section? Moved by Borges, second by Pensaval. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thanks. Sure. All right. Section C then is programs requesting reactivation, and at this time there are no programs requesting reactivation. So moving on to Part 2, the next two sections, D and E, are for notification purposes only, and no action is needed. Section D, we have programs that are transitioning. There are two institutions transitioning from general education induction to teacher induction, and they can now serve all candidates in both general education and education specialist. We have the Bay Area School of Enterprise, the Reach Institute, and the Pomona Unified School District.
And if I could just add, both of these were errors that we've recently discovered, so we're just cleaning up the record.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Section E, we have programs moving to inactive status, and this section is for notification only. No action is needed. There are 4 program sponsors moving 4 programs to inactive status. You'll see the first one listed is La Mesa Spring Valley School District's induction program, and that's tied to item 14, which we're going to discuss later on today. But the 4 we have are La Mesa Spring Valley School District for teacher induction, San Diego Unified School District teacher induction, University of California, Los Angeles Education Specialist mild, moderate, or traditional, and the University of Phoenix Preliminary Administrative Services. Okay, thanks. All right, we now move on to item 7. Item 7 is the initial program approval for new program sponsors. This is the agenda where we were an item we would consider any new program proposals from new institutions that just received provisional approval from the commission, but there are none, so there are no initial program approvals. So we'll move on to item 8. Okay. Item 8, discussion of late documents. Michelle Bernardo will present the item. Sorry, make you rush. Sorry, Michelle. And when you're ready, Ms. Bernardo, please begin.
Good morning. This item provides information on institutions who have not complied with the timelines established in their accreditation cycle. Specifically, this item covers common standards, which were due on February 28th of this year, and then preconditions, which were due on March 31st. As you can see from the table in item 8, the last common standards, for common standards, there was one Roland Unified School District who decided to withdraw their program. So they're no longer required to submit the common standards. And then in the following table for preconditions, we have El Rancho Unified School District who did submit their preconditions, but the links in their to their evidence were not working, so we've contacted them several times to get the links fixed, but they have not responded to our request. And then we have 3 institutions who have not responded to us and have not submitted their preconditions: Argosy University, San Jose State University, and San Ramon Valley Unified School District. All 3 also have not responded to our multiple requests for preconditions. The staff will continue to work and try to get these institutions to submit the late documents, but as of right now, they have not been responding to our requests. And Cheryl has tried to reach out to them as well.
Continue to try to reach out to them. There is a point at which the commission can pull the trigger and basically not allow them to recommend any more candidates, and that is certainly an option that you all have. We're doing our best. Most of the time, it's a personnel issue that they have changed people, and we're trying to hunt down the right people or the right, that may have not even known that they have this responsibility. Some of them we are working closely with like Roland. We have Karen Sacramento is working closely with them to figure out what their sort of a little chaotic and they're trying to figure out what they're doing. So each one of these has their own story, but we're doing the best we can to get what we can.
So this is an information item. If you wanted to take stronger action on the next, if we came back to you and these were still not received, especially for me, the preconditions, which are compliance.
It's an action item. It's always on as action.
Thanks. Sorry. It's incorrect on our actual item then. Great. Thank you.
Well, the good news is I think it's so wonderful that we changed the way preconditions are reviewed, because this shows that there is a problem. And I worry that when we look at the list and the public sees this, and these are compliance, it's really alarming that. And so there's a reason. It doesn't necessarily, what I'm hearing you say, Cheryl, is it doesn't really necessarily mean that they are not in compliance. It's just that you're not able to get the proof that they're in compliance because of something going on at the institution. But it does seem like there should be some kind of formal warning in writing that they receive.
Yes. Yes, I think, no, that makes sense. And I think, thank you, Catherine, for noticing the discrepancy, because I think in that case, it makes it that we probably shouldn't take formal action then. That would be because it's not clear.
I think if the committee could give us the direction that a formal written information should be sent to the four that we do not have complete preconditions of within the next 2 weeks, and that you want an update at the August meeting. Yeah, I think that is something we could definitely move forward on.
What I think for me it would be helpful to know what's the parameters of the warning. Yeah. So if the conversation is around that this could ultimately result in your inability to recommend candidates, I think if we're warning people, we should include what the potential threat is.
Right. Quick question. Do we have late fees at this point? No.
The challenge is that when the late fees were put into practice in the regulations, we were very, very explicit. And so there are late fees if your biennial report is late. There are late fees if your program assessment is late. There are not late fees identified if a regularly scheduled accreditation report is not received on time. We are working on moving those regulations forward and revising them so that it will be much more the second, where there could be late fees assessed on this. But no, there are not at this point in time.
I think James.
So it would need to be something like can't recommend,
right?
And you can't go for approval for a new program,
right?
Those are two things that we commonly use. 3 months is pretty late. I'm wondering about the efforts to communicate with the institution. You're sending emails to your regular contact. At what point do you bump up that communication to the dean, the provost, the president?
It's already been bumped up.
It's already there.
Mm-hmm.
And do we don't have anything back saying we've received
crickets? Yeah,
we care.
Yeah, it's very, very.
And these are, a couple of these pretty big institutions that do a lot of credentialing. So that's the level of concern. Well, not that the smalls makes any difference, but
Community member Webb.
And then I just wanted to echo what I've heard, and also Margot, Cheryl, Iris, when we were in our accreditation meetings, we had a long conversation around the role of the preconditions, and in the past how they had, well, you did it, but there was no real follow through. And I think that we do need to have the understanding that preconditions, as we said, are compliance, and these are things that are very, very serious. And so I am definitely in support of some type of communication. What the outline in terms of repercussions for that is. And I think that it definitely needs to be sent out that this is something that's very important because it's law and we need to make sure that we're following that.
Member Principal.
Yeah, I'd just like to build on what James said. So the preconditions are the baseline. The preconditions are the foundation, and nobody should be moving forward unless they've met the preconditions, or we know they have. So I guess my question is, what's a reasonable amount of time to wait? This is a long time, and they're recommending students. So I think that we have to decide, maybe this becomes a time limit or something like that. Yeah.
Member Morrison.
Just to back up a minute, I might correct you saying that we can't take action now. We couldn't take action on this now.
I think because we erred and the item itself says it's for information, even though the agenda itself says it's action. So I think giving us direction right now to issue a formal warning, maybe with Mary Sandy's signature on the document, I think that's something we could certainly do if that seems to be, and then we will bring it back to you in August with an update, if that's okay. Catherine.
So one of the actions that you took when we were instituting the handbook around the language around preconditions in general was that when preconditions are submitted, we give them if they're out of compliance, we give them a very brief window.
Right.
We give them 10 days. I mean, during the summer, we kind of stretch the 10 days because it's unrealistic. If they've sent us stuff and it's still not right, and now we're sending it back to a place that doesn't have any staff, that's hard. But knowing that, is there a timeline that in this letter that you want to specify that it needs to be here within 10 days or within by a certain date? It's still summer. The reason why I'm asking this is that it's still summer.
Well, there seems to be a general feeling or consensus that some kind of letter from the commission would definitely, let's see.
Okay.
Carrie.
I would really encourage you to direct us to send a letter that states these were due March 31st. You have 10 days from receipt of this to communicate with us. And that if we do not have the preconditions prior to the posting deadline for the August committee meeting, that the action in front of the committee would be to restrict the recommendations from that institution until the preconditions have been received.
That's great.
I think we lay that out in the letter. We send that letter to the dean or the superintendent, and we get that going, and we would follow through in that way.
I'd like to add that they, and we've done this before, need to notify the candidates currently enrolled of the stipulation, because that's a real...
Member Alvarado.
So given that it was mentioned that there may be transitioning in leadership, make sure the letter also goes to president, provost, and dean.
Point. Yeah, good point.
And
Member Webb.
And with the superintendent, I would add school board members, because the school board still meets throughout the summer, and even though you may have vacation schedules, I mean, that's just one recommendation I would have with the ones that, if it's a school district.
Sure. That seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Member Forbes.
Well, I was just going to echo that and say, just like 5 o'clock, it's always summer somewhere in terms of our vacations. Because sometimes we have, our programs start in the summer, and we're often times when other people aren't. So I think 10 days just needs to be 10 days.
And summertime often is when they solicit new students too, so you hate to have that time go by. All right, any further discussion? Okay, does that give the...
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Bernardo. We're going to jump ahead then to item 11. We have a time certain, which 10:30 time certain. So do we have all representatives from the Cal State East Bay? Have them come forward? Yep. Welcome all. So item 11 is the report of the accreditation team to California State University East Bay. Consultant Jake Schuler will introduce this item, and with him at the table are team lead Dr. Christine Zeppos and institutional representatives Dr. Carolyn Nelson, who is the Dean of the College of Education and Allied Studies, and Dr. Shira Nebliner, the accreditation coordinator, thank you. Also on the visit, serving in the role of state consultant, was Terry Clark. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? I'm sorry? Well, I want to introduce him right now, yeah. Yeah, I already introduced him at the very beginning of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for looking
We won't forget you, Jake.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Schuler, will you please begin?
Yes, good morning. California State University East Bay's site visit took place from April 29 through May 2nd at their main campus in Hayward, California. A total of 384 interviews were conducted with various stakeholders beginning on Sunday and continuing through Tuesday of the visit. The site visit proceeded in accordance with all normal accreditation protocols. The leadership team at CSU East Bay was fantastic to work with throughout the year leading up to the site visit and was extremely thorough in their preparation for the visit. The East Bay team, as you've mentioned, is represented here today by their dean, Dr. Carolyn Nelson, and by Dr. Shira Lubliner, who coordinated the visit. Sitting next to me is our amazing team lead, Dr. Christine Zeppos, Dean of the School of Education at Brandman University. Christine was an absolute joy to work with and a fantastic leader throughout the process. I would also like to quickly thank our site visit review team for contributing their time and expertise to the visit. We had 7 reviewers and 2 state consultants. The team worked diligently in preparation for the visit and worked extremely hard during the visit. I'll stop there and turn it over to Dr. Zeppos to present the findings and the accreditation recommendation.
Great. Thank you, Jake. And it's wonderful to see so many that I haven't seen for a while. It was an honor to be the team lead for this visit, and I want to thank Terry and Jake. As you can imagine, with many programs and large and robust programs, this was quite an undertaking. Really appreciated their guidance throughout the process. And Jake is right. The team was incredible, made up of really very thoughtful reviewers who took the time to look at every piece of evidence given and really weigh and make very, very thoughtful, not only discussion, but decision ultimately. And thank you to the institution from the moment at the pre-visit all the way through the site visit time. We were welcomed with every detail and every bit of attention taken to our needs. When there was further information that needed to be gathered, they did that really so quickly and provided so much information that made the decisions much more useful and easy to come to. So without further ado, it was the unanimous recommendation from the team of accreditation, and that was based on a thorough review of all institutional and programmatic information and materials available prior to and during the accreditation site visit. Numerous interviews, as Jake had said, 384, and the team felt that we obtained sufficient and consistent information that led to a high degree of confidence in making the overall programmatic judgments about the professional education's unit operation. And so the decision with program standards is after review of the institutional report, supporting documentation, completion of interviews with candidates, graduates, intern teachers, faculty, employers, and supervising practitioner, the team unanimously determined that all program standards are fully met in all programs offered at CSU East Bay. Quite an accomplishment. With the common standards, again, after review of the institutional report, supporting documentation, completion of interviews with candidates, graduates, intern teachers, faculty, employers, and supervising practitioners, the team determined that common standard 1, 2, 4, and 5 were fully met, and that common standard 3, course of study, fieldwork, and clinical practice, is met with concerns. And justification for that met with concerns, and this is something we spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, in discussion and deliberations, and as we look for more evidence. I'd like to be specific as to what the thinking was behind that, and as you can understand, the team's decision making. So we did triangulate the data based on program information and, again, the interviews. And the relevant language specifically in Common Standard 3 that we felt was met with concerns is site-based supervisors are trained in supervision oriented to the supervisory role, evaluated and recognized in a systematic manner. And we broke that into 2 chunks of the areas where further evidence was still needed. In the training and orientation of site-based supervisors, in the past program, The documents include fieldwork table that details the activities and amount of time candidates should be working with their coaches and district mentor. Some district mentors, the site-based supervisors, indicated in interviews that they were not aware of this information. According to the program leadership, the coaches should be given a packet to district mentors and should conduct a three-way evaluations at the completion of the program. In the preliminary preparation programs, the majority of site-based supervisors reported that the university supervisor sat down with them to explain the expectations of them as a cooperating teacher, but a small group of site-based supervisors reported that this did not take place. There's a lack of evidence that all site-based supervisors are oriented and trained for their role as required by the standard. The second area, systematic evaluation of site-based supervisors. Faculty, including university supervisors, are evaluated at the end of the term. However, there does not seem to be consistent evidence that site-based supervisors are evaluated formally or informally across programs as is required by the standard. Completers and current candidates reported that they did not evaluate the site-based supervisors in several of the programs. And so I want to highlight, while these are areas of concern, there was not thinking among the team that this was major cause for concern in any way. In fact, we never discussed adding stipulations as a recommendation. These seem to be areas that can quickly be fixed. And we have full confidence that the leadership at CSU East Bay will do so rapidly, if not already. And so it is without hesitation that we recommend full accreditation without additional reports. Truly believe that these will be rectified quite quickly. And so I'd be happy to answer questions after the leadership has an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zeppel. It's a very thorough report. We'd now like to call the institution to say a few words about the visit. This is not a time to dispute the team findings, but rather to provide any thoughts that you had about the visit.
Thank you for your comments and for your confidence in us. It is not wasted, because you're right. That's exactly what has happened and will be happening. And interestingly enough, this is a side note, simultaneous with our accreditation process, we were going through semester conversion. And for a university faculty group, it means revising, transforming, not just transferring numbers of units, but transforming your programs based on the new standards that just came out in June. So I believe, was I right? In June. And so there was a lot going on, and we really, really appreciate the fact that the team was thorough and took our evidence seriously, because we took our job of accreditation very seriously as a unit. It is serious. It's very high stakes. And so we didn't take it lightly. We did our very best. And thank you for the result. And you are already we're starting early now. Instead of September, we're starting mid-August. You will already see responses to those items.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the institution?
Just to second Dr. Nelson's comments. Is it on? Okay. Also, I want to thank Terry and Jake and Christine and the team for their efforts. It was a very intense 4 days, and yet very positive. And I think we felt that it was overall a very good experience. It really highlighted things that we need to work on. And as Carolyn mentioned, we're already starting that work, among other things, improving our documentation of contacts with our stakeholders and our work with site-based cooperating teachers and district partners. So I think that, as Christine said, that work will quickly be accomplished. It really did strengthen the lens that we use to view those things. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. All right, an opportunity for the committee to have any discussion or questions, comments you may have. Committee member Briggs.
I would just congratulate you on this fine report, and also thank you for providing such a clear rationale in the thinking behind the decision. Makes it very easy for us.
Committee member Erickson.
I too would like to reiterate the report was easy to read and thorough, and thank you very much for all of the work that you do. And I also wanted to commend you on two things: your diversity plans that you have for recruitment, and also the way in which you have the accreditation website that's showcasing various ways that your teachers in the field are actually impacting K-12 learning. So that was very good. Thanks.
And Committee Member Pensacola.
I wanted to congratulate you too. I don't know if anybody's done the mental math, but you met 159 out of 159 standards. That's pretty amazing in 12 programs. So kudos to that. I just think that it was a really well-written report. It was interesting to read. I like your dual program, and I'm very interested in that. And good job. Congrats.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Committee Member Erickson.
I move that we approve the report as written.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by, we had a discussion item before we get there. So, Co-Chair Moore.
Again, great report. Really enjoyed reading it. I'm feeling a little tentative, like I might like a 7th-year report on the one standard that was met with concerns. Yeah. So just because you're doing it, if you're doing the great work, let's just clear the slate for you, give you the opportunity to tell us what you're doing, and then we can remove that stipulation in a year.
Stipulation.
Met with concerns. Right, no stipulations, but maybe adding the stipulation of a 7th-year report so they can come back.
Committee Member Webb.
I hear what you're saying. But I will tell you that this particular common standard, it really is one that evolves over time because we're trying to figure out what works best and how to gather that data and also have it be meaningful. And I would agree with you if I saw program standards that were concerning, but my personal recommendation would be that I don't see the need for a 7th-year report because I feel that the team was there. They saw what's, going on. And I think that I'm hearing from the university staff that they definitely have some things in play that will have that. And I would say that I feel comfortable that it's going in the direction that it needs to go.
Committee Member Riggs.
I would agree. I heard Christine say that it was a small group. It would be different if it had been a pattern across. So clearly it's in place, but it wasn't consistent across everybody. But a small group, that sounds to me like that's not a huge task for them to get into place, the accountability across everyone.
Okay. How about I'll ask a couple of questions. We'll go that direction. It says on page 38 that some district mentors were not aware of some of the information about the fieldwork. And then right up above it said some current multiple subject candidates reported that the site-based supervisors were not very knowledgeable about the program or their role, and there was little communication between them and the university supervisor. So what's happening around those two things, those two items?
I did conduct focus groups with all of our cohorts in the spring. This is specifically in multiple and single subject to talk about, in particular, their experiences in the field and their relationships with cooperating teachers and their supervisors. And we also found in the focus groups that a very small subset of cooperating teachers did not get the information that was required. And so the focus groups gave us an opportunity to pinpoint where that was happening so that we can really zero in on supervisors that may be remiss in terms of providing that information. There's supposed to be, as Christine mentioned, a 3-way conference, and those overwhelmingly take place and are documented. But one of the things that we can do is look for that paperwork and see if there are specific supervisors that seem to be eliminating that step. So we've already made quite a bit of headway in terms of identifying those issues and who we need to work with to strengthen that communication.
Thank you. I do understand, too, that at times you can say it one way and another way and another way, and somehow the message just doesn't get across. And you can have it in writing that on a document they signed, and sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't read it or I didn't get that. So, okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or discussions? Okay, so we'll go back to Committee Member Erickson with the motion. Would you like to restate the motion?
Sorry. I move that we accept the report as written.
Okay, and is there a second? Second by Committee Member Forbes. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So thank you, Dr. Nelson, Dr. LeBlainer, Dr. Zeppos, and Mr. Schuler, and Ms. Clark. Thank you all. Right. It's one of those things, if you think too much about it, you blow it, right? But thank you very much. We have an 11 o'clock time certain, but if we can move back to item 10. Cheryl, you think we have time to get that? Or Dr. Carney, would you have time, you think, to get that? Item 10? Okay. What's that? We're just bouncing around. Sure, no worries. So item 10 is the determination of differentiated intervals between site visits for institutions needing additional oversight. That's a mouthful, but that's what it is. So Administrator Dr. Carney will introduce the item.
I wanted it to feel like it was a dissertation title.
It has that feel.
Has that weight.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Good morning. So I just want to review, and I know that all of you are very familiar with this, but right now you have a host of current actions that you take when an institution has not fully met all standards. They aren't fully accredited, but they aren't closed. It's in between. It's with stipulations, whether those stipulations are requiring that a seventh-year report or quarterly reports occur, or perhaps other more consequential actions could go all the way up to hosting a revisit, as well as notifying students. You could take action to close a single program, and also you could deny an institution's ability to accept candidates. So all of those things you already have in your realm of possibilities. So during the strengthening and streamlining effort, through discussion in the task force and discussion with this body, one of the things that you asked for and that the commission granted was the ability to differentiate the time between site visits, not to lengthen it beyond the 7-year cycle, but to have a way that if you are feeling that there needs to be a shortened amount of time so that there's additional oversight, that you could leverage that as an option as well. And the commission did grant that authority. So the reason that that staff is bringing this forward is that in some cases where this might be an appropriate action could be that an institution at the end of the 7th year hasn't been able to remove stipulations, or they haven't been able to comply with requests, or in some cases they have taken action, but it hasn't been fully implemented. And then in some cases you could have a situation where although the institution's working on it, or perhaps it even appears that it's been fixed, that because of the severity of the issue, you feel like there just needs to be additional oversight. So in looking at the process as a whole, it seems most appropriate to staff that the decision whether or not to shorten the time between site visits would best occur at the end of the 7th year, not immediately after the site visit, because you have all those other tools in place leading up to that. And that at the end of the 7th year, if you were to determine that you felt that there needed to be additional oversight through a more shortened time frame between site visits, that would be a good time for that action to occur. What we're also recommending is that the time in between be at least 3 years. And the reason for that is that you already have a revisit that's possible within that 7th year. But then if you're shortening the time frame, there needs to be time for some other accreditation activities to take place. Program review and common standards review, as well as preconditions. The opportunity to review all of those pieces of evidence and data allows a site visit to occur in a way that's rigorous and fair and appropriate. So precondition review happens in year 4, and common standards and program review happen in year 5. So if you were to determine that an institution was needed a visit within 3 years, then the administrator of accreditation would reassign them to a new cohort that would be a year 4 cohort, so that would give ample time, or I think year 3 cohort, sorry. A visit happens in year 6. If you were to determine that it's 5 years, the same kind of activity would happen, or if you could determine that it was 4 years. From year 7 until the site visit, the normal duration is 6 years. And from obviously, if there's no stipulations, it's 7 years. So if you took no action, it would follow the normal cycle, but in cases where that is necessary, you have that ability. If you feel like we're on the right track, and I'll answer questions in just a second, then we'll bring forward to you in the future handbook language so that you can take action on that, and that it is clearly stated in the way that you feel is appropriate. With that, I'll answer questions.
Yeah, committee member principal.
So I remember this conversation, and several of us
I know that you do.
In the room. Yeah. and I guess I'm just connecting a couple dots here because, yes, there would be automatically a 7-year review if we felt that was needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that is where this new program would kick in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if we knew at the time that the annual reports would then be annual, because we'll still have those yearly to look at data from each one of the programs. So that might give us a heads up. So I think the 3-year is a good idea. I'd like to support that because we will have data from 7th year into those next couple of years. Am I getting this right?
So just to clarify, we are not trying to control in any way the number of years that you set. What we are asking is that it's not less than 3, because that doesn't give adequate time for a site visit team to get ready because of how our new cycle is structured. You could determine that the normal cycle is 7, but that we feel like we need to be there in 4 or 5. But we're just saying that if it's less than 3, that would be very difficult for a team to adequately assess an institution.
Yeah, committee member Webb, sorry.
Just a technical question. So if the administrator assigned a program to a new cohort.
Could the people who are on Zoom please mute their microphones? Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Would they go back to their original cohort, or would they still be in that cohort to which they were reassigned?
They would be reassigned to a cohort. And so let's play this out. They're reassigned. The visit happens in it's the 6th year for their new cohort, but it's really only been 3 years since their last visit. And then everything goes well. Then they're in that cycle of 7 years. They don't revert back and then have to do a visit in just 2 more years or something like that. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? It's information item only, so no action is needed. So thank you, Dr. Carney. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Do we have time to take a 5-minute break? So let's take it. We have 11 o'clock certain, so we have time to take 5 minutes. So we'll reconvene at 11. And meeting now is back in order on the record. No worry, just as you said. So we're going to look at item 12. Item 12 is a report of the accreditation team to California State University Channel Islands. Consultant Lynette Roby will introduce the item, and joining her at the table is Dr. Mimi Miller, Common Standards Site Visit Reviewer, substituting for the team lead, Dee Parker, who couldn't be here today. and then Institutional Representative Dr. Brian Sevier, Dean, School of Education. Does anyone need to recuse himself? Seeing none, Ms. Roby, please begin.
Me too. Good morning. I'm pleased to be presenting to you the accreditation site visit. Well, I'm not presenting the report, but this is for California State University Channel Islands. And the visit occurred April 30th through May 1st of this year. I'd like to introduce the people sitting at the table with me today. With us today, representing the team lead, who was Dee Parker, and she's not able to be here today, but we have Mimi Miller from CSU Chico, who was the also a Common Standards reviewer on the visit. And she'll be presenting the report in just a moment. And by the way, there's a slight error on the report. It has the team lead, Dee Parker, listed as being from CSU Channel Islands, which would be rather a large conflict of interest. So she's actually from CSU Dominguez Hills. And the other person at the table today is the Dean Brian Sevier, who, and I just need to mention this, by the way, joined CSU Channel Islands only 7-8 months prior to the visit. So he stepped in and started running right away. With that, I'd like to thank CSU Channel Islands for hosting the visit. It is located in a lovely place. It's on Camarillo and Camarillo on the coast. It's truly a beautiful campus in sort of a mission style. It's very, very pretty. And it has a very interesting history, and that's kind of all I'm going to say about that. You can look it up. I'd also like to acknowledge the dedication, the tirelessness, and the wonderful spirit of the team that was really comprised of 5 members. Of course, you've already heard the team lead was Dee Parker, again from CSU Dominguez Hills, Mimi Miller, Patricia Wick from Brandman, Donna Elder from National University, and Raymond Hurst from La Sierra University. And additionally, although he's not up here next to me, I would like to say a special thanks to staff member Hart Boyd, who, for all of his work prior to the visit and during the visit, he was really invaluable to have on the visit with me. So there were no unusual circumstances about this visit. The team arrived at noon on the first day. They completed interviews and looked at documents during the following 2 days, and the report was presented to faculty and staff from CSU Channel Islands on the morning of the final day. Pretty normal. With that, I will turn this over to Mimi Miller, who's going to present you the findings of the team and the team's recommendation. Mimi?
Thank you, Lynette. At CSU Channel Islands, the team completed a thorough review of program documents, program data, interviews with administrators, faculty, staff, candidates, completers, and local school personnel. On the basis of the report, the team makes a recommendation of accreditation with stipulations. I'm going to talk about the program standards first, and then I'll talk about the common standards. The team determined that all program standards were met for each of the 5 programs. These programs include 4 preliminary credential programs, multiple subject, single subject, education specialist, mild, moderate, and administrative services, and also the bilingual authorization program. Some strengths that we saw across all the programs. Candidates, program completers, and employers spoke highly of CSU CI programs. Common themes included the close integration of coursework and clinical practice, the strength of co-teaching experiences in clinical placements, and preparation to teach diverse learners in California schools. Candidates and completers praised faculty, staff, university supervisors, and mentor teachers, calling them supportive, encouraging, and available. School partners were complimentary of graduates of all programs, describing the well-prepared graduates that they had hired from CSU Channel Islands. So now on to common standards. For common standards, standards 2 and 5 were found to be fully met. Standards 1 and 3 were found to be met with concerns, and standard 4 was found to be not met. And now I'll talk a little bit about each of those standards. Standard 1, institutional infrastructure, was found to be met with concerns for the following reasons. Although it was evident that there is an infrastructure in place to support all 5 of the credential programs offered by the School of Education, there was no evidence of a clearly articulated, coherent, and research-based vision across all programs. For Standard 2, candidate recruitment and support, that was found to be fully met. Standard 3, course of study, fieldwork, and clinical practice, this one was found to be met with concerns. All constituencies interviewed confirmed that district-employed supervisors provide effective and knowledgeable support for candidates. However, the team found limited evidence that they are trained and evaluated in a systematic manner. In addition, there was a lack of evidence of systematic collaboration with school partners about the criteria for selecting clinical personnel, district-employed supervisors, and school sites. On to Standard 4. So Standard 4, continuous improvement, was found to be not met. While data is collected and used to ensure candidate preparation, there was no evidence that it is systematically used as a part of a comprehensive and continuous improvement process at the program or unit level. Interviews confirmed a lack of confidence in data generated, including data required for state and federal reporting. During interviews, unit leadership and faculty expressed interest in having a central location for data and a more systematic approach to its analysis and use. In addition, there was limited evidence that feedback from stakeholders was collected, analyzed, and used to improve programs and their services. And then finally, Standard 5 for Common Standards program impact was found to be met. To conclude, the recommendation of the team is accreditation with stipulations. And I'll just summarize those stipulations briefly. Stipulations are that CSU Channel Islands must provide evidence that any common standard less than fully met would be addressed, including evidence of an ongoing process to inform candidates, faculty, and district partners of the unit's vision, evidence of a formal, systematic collaboration with school partners regarding the criteria for selecting clinical personnel, district-employed supervisors, and school sites, evidence of systematic training and evaluation for district-employed supervisors, and finally, evidence of implementing a comprehensive and unit-wide assessment and evaluation system. The team felt fully confident that the institution will be able to meet these stipulations as outlined.
All right, thank you, Dr. Miller. Now I'd like to call on the institution to say a few words about the visit. Not the time to dispute the team findings, but to rather provide any thoughts or observations, comments that you may have about the visit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. And I just want to say the visit was an incredible opportunity for me, as Lynette said, and Lynette and Hart did an amazing job in the process, as did our team led by Dee and surrogate Mimi here. So as Lynette said, we are in a time of transition at Channel Islands. So of the four deans on campus, I will be the only one returning in the fall. We have a brand new president who is less than 2 years old in her job, and a provost who is less than a year in his job. It's a great time of transition. It's a great time for change. It's also a great time to rethink where we've been and where we're going. While we're proud of all of the credential programs for passing their standards, nothing is surprising in the results around the common standards. And in fact, the report has already provided, and it's been a great resource for me to work with senior leadership on campus to make some really important and fundamental changes in the School of Ed. Without it, I would not have been able to do so. So I'd just like to mention a few things we've been working on the last year, well, 9 months, I should say, and what we've done since the visit, and a little bit about where we want to go. So over the last year, we have reconstructed our mission statement. When I got to Channel Islands, there were no less than 7 mission statements for the School of Education. We worked with community stakeholders and our faculty and our students to actually craft one mission statement out of those 7. In the last few months, we have outlined a theory of action around teaching and learning, connected to that mission that will connect with, eventually will connect with strategic priorities, and threading through those priorities is teacher education as we see it as a community endeavor and a reciprocal process, really framing our community as a community of practice around teacher preparation, which is, we already have, as Mimi says, a very strong connection to our community, so we're going to really build on that. In addition to that, we conducted an exhaustive data and assessment review both at the unit and program level using our institutional research planning and effectiveness office. That went on for 3 months. It ended just before the visit. That was centered around some compliance issues with federal and state reporting of data. that I'll get to how we're cleaning that up in a minute. We have hired a data collection and data analyst specialist for the School of Ed who began her work in the fall. We are using TaskStream now for the first time in all of our credential programs to track and monitor our candidates. We've so far only used those in observational protocols, but we'll begin to use them for key assignments collected across the program to be able to see where our students are strong in those TPs, where we are weak, in addition to making curriculum changes as necessary. We've just got approval to use grant funding this summer. We've done a little bit of this already to convene all of our instructors and tenure track faculty to do some curriculum mapping. There's been some deviation from the curriculum maps as we have a very large a great cadre of instructors, but getting them on board, as you saw in the report, really with our messaging and who we are is the work moving forward. And then we have recently formed in the last 6 months both data and assessment and continuous improvement committees in the School of Ed that include external and internal stakeholders, both CI stakeholders as well as community stakeholders. That's the work we've done the last year. Since the visit, we've begun some major restructuring of the unit, including the elimination of some positions, reassigning key personnel, and we've begun the process of hiring an associate dean/director of clinical experiences and partnerships, which just went live last Thursday. So if you want to spread the word, that'd be great. We have in the last month convened more than 10 focus groups with community stakeholders, from superintendents to induction coaches to mentor teachers to university supervisors to faculty to students and to parents and families, oriented really around the first step in our community of practice, our first problem of practice, which is really defining where we are and how we are doing in our community's eyes in preparing our teachers to work in Ventura County. As you know, we're the only IHE in Ventura County. And so this process has really begun to look at that baton handoff from Cal State Channel Islands to the county, and what we're doing well and what we can do better and what they think those Ready Day One competencies are for our new teachers. That has just ended last week. In addition, that part of that process has been to recreate a School of Education Advisory Board, which has not existed for some years, including stakeholders from all of those groups. And for the first time ever, we have collected the names and emails of every single teacher in Ventura County, and we will be emailing all of them with our alumni survey because we haven't conducted any alumni surveys to connect with our former students and see where they are and what they thought of this program, its strengths, how well prepared they were, and what we can do better. Within the next few months, we are actually hiring an external consultant to come into our credential office and start from the ground up and building the necessary foundational infrastructure that is missing. And in addition to that, our IRPE office has been dedicated from our senior leadership. They have been dedicated to us for the next 3 months to actually work on all of the stipulations that you saw in the report. We found out yesterday that we are one of a few campuses selected by NCTR to have a year-long consultancy in teacher residencies. We have the beginnings of that program, but we will be working to create and sustain powerful residencies across all of our programs, and that's part of our work to message who we are, what we stand for in teacher prep. And that involves and includes all of the work around training our DESs, choosing our sites, choosing our supervisors, training our supervisors, all that work that's noted in the Common Standard stipulations. And then finally, out of the focus groups that we are working with this summer, and we'll be conducting town halls in August, we'll be creating a new observational rubric that we'll be using across all of our programs in concert with our community stakeholders and bringing them back to the School of Ed in a reciprocal process over the next year, which we just received funding for, to see how well we're doing in both developing those competencies and actually evaluating them. So combined with all this work, we hope that this will we're very hopeful that we meet all of the stipulations in the report, and we're excited to move forward. I think we're really well positioned to do so, but sometimes you really have to go back to the basics and square one, and we're sort of there in some respects. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sevier. Now an opportunity for the committee for discussion, questions, and just as a reminder, we do have our fluorescent green sheet that comes out of the handbook for our use. So. Committee Member Alvarado.
Really encouraging that you've engaged in all these efforts to, shore up the institution and your programs, and that sounds like a vaguely familiar experience for me.
Pleasant or not so much?
Successful.
Yeah.
However, I did have a question in terms of the number of interviews conducted with program completers. It seemed relatively low. And your thoughts on why that might be?
I would say part of this goes back to why we're doing the survey of our alumni. The infrastructure to actually connect with those completers just was not really there. So the effort we made was monumental in terms of the actual access that we had to who those completers are. But I will say, and you saw this in the report, there is an additional issue around completers with our Title II reporting, that they're the understanding of what constitutes a completer and why a completer would be included in data reporting and how completers are reported is not something that was understood.
Committee Member Morrison.
It sounds like you've already started a lot of work here, and maybe I missed this in all the things that you were talking about. But one of the stipulations addresses the supervisors trained and evaluated people working with the districts, basically. And can you tell me a little bit about what you plan to do there and how you see that changing?
So you're speaking about the district employed supervisors or the university supervisor or both? Yes. So I will say that in the last 6 months, just being able to ascertain where our students are has been virtually impossible. So part of this work, when I say we're back to foundational work, I mean foundational work. So moving forward, the vision that we were the recipient of a Bechtel grant in the last couple of years, and part of that work is funding the focus groups with our stakeholders as well as the curriculum mapping piece. I think we've had some conversations with our foundation folks about really exploring what it would be like to train our DESs to operate as true mentors in the program, that we would bring on almost as lecturers in our program and work to have them do the work of both the mentor teacher and the evaluative work that is typically assigned to a university supervisor. So that the training piece would be, and this is something I've done at another institution, the training piece would be a week or 2 week long sort of training with our DESs who are selected as DESs in the philosophy and the pedagogical beliefs of our faculty and our program. And then working with those with some site-based managers at some professional development and residency model schools that we work with to actually have them operate as true mentors. So that's one of the pilots we're going to try. Hopefully we have a very long-standing relationship with a university prep charter school, which is associated with Cal State Channel Islands. And they're already starting the conversation around this about what it could look like to pilot that this coming spring.
Committee Member Forbes.
Thank you for that explanation. I also had a question about the number of district-employed supervisors interviewed relative to the university supervisors. There seemed to be quite a discrepancy. So was that a factor of not being able to, as you said, find the candidates? Could you say just a little more about that?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
So in the there were 6 district-employed supervisors interviewed according to the chart, and there were 20 university supervisors. So I was just wondering why so few district-employed supervisors.
Yes, I think to answer that is part of the work that we need to do around connecting. We have the school has these long-standing relationships with partners, but the definition of what it meant to serve as a mentor really hasn't been fleshed out. And so that's part of the exciting work we're going to do, I think, especially with NCTR. One of my criteria when we asked to be part of this consultancy with NCTR was working with one partnership school to really develop a true mentorship model with those DESs. So the short answer to your question is yes. And then moving forward, right, I really believe, we're sort of using this motto around the School of Ed. And it is, what have we done today to advance the professionalism of teaching? And so thinking about that in terms of who we choose as our mentors and how we actually prepare them and evaluate them and give them feedback in the same way we expect that how they work with our candidates is our work. I hope that answers it.
Member Briggs.
I congratulate you for being able to articulate so well what has transpired as someone so new to your role. The concern I have is that you've heard some questions, and this is really more for the team. You've heard some questions about the number of interviews that were done. And I think it causes some of us perhaps to wonder about the depth of issues that exist and whether or not enough interviews were conducted. And once there was such a list, because there's quite a list here of stipulations, whether more interviews should have been sought out of some of the constituents for which there appeared to be a limited number of interviews conducted. So that's one concern, I think. In hearing the response about, we've really got to start at ground, at the baseline here, which is so honest and forthright of you to say, it just does really concern me, because it's not like we're hearing that it's an issue for a subgroup. We're hearing that it's an issue across the board in some very vital areas. And I think sometimes when I look at the report and I see that all program standards are met, it makes me feel really good and say, oh, well, it's just common standards. But common standards are program standards also. And so this means that there are some major issues at your institution, at least it appears, related to field work, related to how things are implemented for your candidates. So I guess I'm asking our body what we can do to assure that these things are addressed. And certainly, I'm looking at the sheet. When stipulations are assigned, it's an automatic 7th year follow-up in the way I'm reading that. So that would be a piece that's not in the report, but is automatic and assumed because of the way things work. But I'm wondering if we need more of that. And I also wonder if what we do here can help you and bolster you so that it's not you alone and some of your people, but helps to communicate the seriousness of what needs to happen at your institution in order to support the candidates that you have and will have in the future.
Member Principal.
I would just like to add to that. I appreciate your forthrightness, and I think you do see the gravity of the program. But as I'm looking at the stipulations, they're across common standards, a vision, collaboration with school partners, supervisors, and a program-wide assessment and evaluation plan. Those are pretty heavy things, and that's the basic net that holds up your whole program. And that is really concerning to me. I was also going to bring up the 7th year report or visit. I think that would be critical. But is there a master plan for improvement? I mean, have you all written up a major comprehensive plan about how to address these? Because these are not just focused in one area. These are across all the major areas that are so important to running a quality program. And that's where my concern lies.
Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. Part of this work, and I will say that my sharing with the senior leadership on campus after the initial report was given, the informal report was given, the gravity of the situation was grasped by both president and provost. And they are fully supportive of me and the school in doing whatever we need to get the support we need and to start this work. Trust me, I'm not taking on all this work by myself. But I think a major piece of this, and some of this we've already done, like I said, is begun to restructure the entire office of credentialing that's in the School of Ed. In terms of a master plan, that will be produced this summer. So part of that work, when I talked about bringing in our institutional research planning and effectiveness office, that's the work. So the work is to create that plan. So we've already started, I have already started a project plan with deliverables and dates, but they're going to inform that in a much more structured and intentional way. We also brought in the person who is responsible for all of our WASC reporting. She's going to be looking at our internal auditing processes and how that works. I'll just say that I think somebody mentioned the tension between program standards and common standards. When the team presented, I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding on our faculty about what that meant. And I don't think that misunderstanding exists anymore. They understand that without the common standards, you don't have a School of Ed. They fully understand that. It's been a long time since they went through the accreditation process. The majority of our 13 tenure track faculty have never been through an accreditation process. We are in the 16th year of our institution. It is an adolescent in every sense of that. But I think the plan moving forward and the support moving forward on the CI side is very, very strong. I support, as I said, this report has been an incredible resource for me to really impress both the staff and faculty in the School of Ed, as well as the larger senior leadership on campus, the need for change.
Any further comments, questions? Okay, at this point, we have an opportunity to either make a motion to accept the recommendations, or we can go ahead and make recommendations based upon our discussions, if there's anything further. Committee Member Alvarado.
So I'd like to make the motion that we accept accreditation with stipulations, with the explicit adding that a seventh-year follow-up report would be required. It's not listed in the...
It's already in. If it's a stipulation, they have to come back within a year.
Okay, so...
yeah, definitely.
Then yes, that's my motion.
Okay, so accept the team report. Okay, seconded by Co-Chair Moore. Any further? Mm-hmm. Right, the accreditation with stipulations as recommended by the team visit. Yeah, Committee Member Briggs.
I'm just wondering, because we do have the option, I believe, to have a visit with that, and I'm wondering if we should add a visit with the seventh-year report. It's a question for you all to consider.
Mm-hmm. Member Forbes.
I would definitely support a visit. I think it would be supportive, hopefully, to the institution as well. At least a visit and possibly even follow-up reports, since you're already considering developing this master plan that you talked about, but hearing a little bit more throughout the year so that we could also provide assistance. Maybe the 90-day 90-day interval.
My concern about that, I'm thinking maybe halfway, 6 months. They've got so much work to do right now. To be doing 3-month quarterly reports, I think would distract from the process, especially with so many new people on board. They need time to get together, to create their own plan, to implement some of the things that they're agreeing on, and then move forward. So I'm thinking at the most 6-month report.
Member Forbes.
I would agree with that. I just feel like it would be helpful to have some increment along the way so that it doesn't get to the seventh-year report. and visit without having had an opportunity to revisit some of these concerns and issues.
Member Pensacola.
Yeah, I would support the 6 months also. I think that a plan is so important, and I think that it might take 6 months just to construct that plan, but I think you really need an overarching kind of master plan to move forward. And I think when we try to get everybody's buy-in, that can take a long time. So I think maybe a 6-month check-in just to see if there is a plan there, and then a 7th year visit review.
Sorry. Dr. Carney, do you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to reassure the body that the reports that come to you are also coupled with ongoing contact from Lynette and Hart back to the institution if you decide there's a revisit. So that also goes on.
Okay, so, yeah, Co-Chair Moore.
Can we decide at the 6-month reviewing that report whether we need a revisit or not?
You can. It's probably better to err on the side of planning the revisit now, and if everything looks glowing and you don't feel like you need one then. But I think for planning purposes for both the institution, for the staff, I think it's better to if you want to revisit, now's the time probably to say it. Yeah.
Member Morrison.
I know it's hard.
In that case, do we need to formally move that, or can we just add that to what Jose?
I think what we would do is, Member Riggs, you're the one who amended the friendly amendment, and then you would make the amendment and see if Alvarado would like to go ahead and amend the motion.
So I make the motion with the friendly amendment
Of
a 6-month, is it visit or report? It's a report, 6-month report. 1 year.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the report with a 6-month follow-up report, progress report, and then a 1-year visitation. Okay, so that's the motion. And then Co-Chair Moore, you had the second. Do you want to second that? Okay, so seconded by Co-Chair Moore. Further discussion? Okay, you can be 2 prime or 2 plus or something. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. All opposed? All right, thank you for the motion. So we want to congratulate the work that's been done. We know it's an uphill battle and that it's an ongoing process. We definitely respect how you've accepted and you recognize and the work that you're doing. It's not an easy task, but success is down the road, so thank you. And also thank you, Dr. Miller. And thank you, Ms. Ruby. We do have 11:30 time certain.
Looking for Bob?
Yep, I see him. So we're going to jump to item number 13.
Catherine, could you ask Vince to unmute, or I guess it's Brendan now, unmute the School for the Deaf folks?
Sure. And they're all joining us, right?
Yeah, by Zoom.
Okay. So if we are ready, item 13 is a discussion of the required progress report for the California School for the Deaf. Consultant Bob Locks will introduce the item, and joining him via video technology, is institutional representative Katie Kovacs, the literary coach and induction coordinator. Does anyone need to recuse himself? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Locks, please begin.
Let's wait. Let's see if we have the folks on.
We have them already.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, hello, we are here.
Okay,
Great.
we do have the representative. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Locks, please begin.
Yeah, I just told him.
Thank you. First, I would like to bring your attention to one correction on page 2 of the item. The very top on Expansion and Advisory Council, Bobby Allen is the third one down, is listed as director of the teacher training program at UCSD, and she is a faculty member and not the director of teacher training. Okay, the California School for the Deaf had an accreditation visit in April of 2016 where they received an accreditation with stipulations. California School of Deaf was found to have 2 common standards and 2 program standards that were met with concerns. As requested, the institution submitted quarterly reports and a year-end report on their progress. At the June 27 COA meeting, the institution provided evidence that the program received sufficient funding to allow for effective operations, and the findings of Common Standard 3, at the time which was resources, was changed from met with concerns to met. Last November, when they returned to the COA, it was to show evidence of the opportunities for professional development that support providers are receiving, and the 2 program standards that had been met with concerns dealing with the training for support providers was changed to met. California School for the Deaf is here today to show that they have implemented a comprehensive evaluation system of their program that will assure continuous improvement and have their Common Standard 2 unit and program assessment and evaluation, or requesting that their Common Standards 2 is changed from met with concerns to met. And just as a reminder, these are the old Common Standards, so the names are and their placement is a little different, but they're still under those guys. So we have Katie Kovac, who is a literacy coach and induction coordinator from for the California School for the Deaf, to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Locke. So I'd like to call on the institution to say a few words about the follow-up report.
Hi, I'm using an interpreter with me. We went through a lot of changes this year. Advisory council meetings have helped us look at our program and how we can improve our evaluating standards for the induction program. It's been very helpful. We've gotten a lot of feedback from each member. And we've worked closely with 2 school districts, Fremont Unified School District and San Francisco Unified School District. They've been very helpful, and we've changed and evaluated our system.
Thank you. Was there anyone else who wanted to make some comment?
So we really focused on expanding the advisory committee and to help us review our program, to make suggestions. We also set up a new evaluation for participating teachers to support providers and advisory council members to get a review and feedback of our program. And then we've made several changes using their feedback.
Thank you. Any other comments from the institution?
I'm David, and Katie's literary supervisor, and I just wanted to comment that we've really done a lot, and Katie and Laura have done most of the work, but we've gotten a significant feedback from you, and that has helped us with our revisions, our revamp of and we're very proud of our program this year. That's all.
Well, thank you. We're glad that the feedback has been useful. This is an action item, so it's an opportunity for the committee now to have discussion or questions. One committee member, Pensaval, and then Forbes.
I could see from the report that a lot of work had been done in terms of your expansion of your advisory council and your collection of data. I just wondered if you could expand a little bit more on how you're using that data for program improvement. I mean, the most important thing about data collection is the distribution across how it improves your program, and I'm just wondering if you could give us a little bit more detail about that.
We created a survey or surveys to find more information on how we could improve on what was more important and how to prioritize. And then we revamped or revised our ILP, so the individual learning plans, to fit the program better. with feedback from the 2 school districts. The specific feedback that we got from the University Advisory Board were things like continual support in the areas of assessment. Help me out with this one. We really, classroom management, the university program explained that they can do so much. So we covered that. We covered the gaps. That's one example. So ILP, and then our ILP also included the DHH ED specialist credentials, so those standards to make sure that they all meet that, because our teachers in this program all need to meet their DHH credential. And we also got feedback that our support providers needed more training. So we've worked with Fremont Unified School District to join their mentoring coaching training, and all of our mentors went to that training. So Christina Naharo has been very helpful in helping us expand our opportunities for training.
Thank you. Committee Member Forbes.
That was actually my question as well, so I'll pass. Thank you.
Committee Member Riggs.
It was also my question, and in looking at the report that you have, I do find that you list the program improvements, and it just may be something that you want to consider in the future to tie those improvements to the actual data that prompted them or the discussions that prompted them, because when I look at the advisory group meetings, it mainly talks about what you discussed, but it's almost like I was looking for a third column that said, what are the outcomes from that meeting? So just organizationally to communicate and keep track of what you've decided, it's just something, some way to organize that and tie it all together rather than just end with a comprehensive list of changes. And we're not able to trace those changes back to what prompted them.
So thank you for that. And to that point, we now are analyzing all the data from the spring surveys. So we have survey information that we will be using to review again in the fall when we get new personnel or new participating teachers. Sorry.
Committee Member Morrison.
Hi, my question was related to that as well, and the clarity of the information. From what I think here, that the advisory council actually only met once as a full council, and then there were these small focus groups, but it's hard to tell who was on the focus groups, how many people were there, and then which of those proposed improvements came from the advisory council and which came out of the focus groups. And I think one of the questions last time when this come up was that this committee felt that the advisory council should be wider involvement in the running of the school, and it's hard to tell how much progress is being made on that.
We met twice as a committee as a whole, and then in between that time we did have the focus group meetings. We found that the focus groups helped us to target specific standards, both in the induction standards and the deaf, hard of hearing standards. So it also helped us to increase the level of communication access. Some meetings we needed to have more interpreting, more support for communication access. So we used those focus groups to target specific improvement areas. And then we brought that focus group meeting minutes to the larger advisory council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Okay, this is an action item, and just a reminder, the recommendation from the report is that to remove the remaining stipulation and grant the institution the status of accreditation. Is there any motion? Okay, so moved by Committee Member Morrison, seconded by Committee Member Borges. For further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations and thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Locks and Mr. Locks, pardon me, and Ms. Kovacs and everybody involved. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Okay, so a little. Thank you.
Looking at the schedule, I don't know that we have time. Okay.
Right.
Can we get about 10 minutes? Okay,
So
let's
think
move
we can-
forward.
Yeah, so we have a little adjusting to do so that we don't lose the quorum for a couple of items. I think at 1 o'clock we have the ADS system. I'm sorry, I'm just doing a check. The AQUIP, what are they called? The new accreditation system person at 1 o'clock. And I think if we do before Suzanne and a couple others leave, if we do the calendar right after that meeting, I think we can still make it before we lose
Can I
people.
have a suggestion?
Uh-huh.
Why don't we eliminate item 15 since we went through and read through that and everything was marked out and at the bottom they're withdrawing? 14, I'm sorry, 14.
14. They're not withdrawing, they're going inactive.
Oh.
That would be pretty short anyways. Right?
Yeah, that would take 2 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So-
could do that, sure.
So shall we do item 17?
Yes.
All right.
I think that
17 is the discussion regarding the progress of establishing program reports in the annual data system. This item will be presented by Director Terry Clark and Analyst Nicole Hill. Ms. Clark and Ms. Hill, please begin.
So Nicole is getting you some additional data that's not actually in the agenda item. It's data that we pulled out more recently, and we'll explain the handout to you soon. And in the item, you'll see that there's 2 different tables, and we actually have some exciting updates to give you about the tables, because when we had 19 reports still to be created when we did this agenda item, we no longer have 19. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now.
Hi, everyone. So as Terry mentioned, my name is Nicole, and I will be providing an update on the status of the development of the program report decks. So last time we reported on the ADS, we gave a live demonstration of the functionalities of the ADS. So how to create an account, how to add a contact to the institution, and also how to manage permission settings in the ADS. So today we'll provide updates on the status of the program report deck. So as you all may know, a program report deck is how our programs are delivered locally. So we essentially want to know, what's the program level? Is it undergraduate? Is it postgraduate? And what are the pathways? Is it residency, private, student teaching, intern, co-teaching, or NA? And lastly, what is the delivery method? So how is the information relayed to the candidate? Is it face-to-face, online, or a combination of both of these? So as Terry mentioned, if I can direct your attention to the first chart at the bottom of page 1, it's just a rundown of our program segments, a total number of our program sponsors, and then our program report decks. It shows the number of reports that have been created and the number of reports that still need to be created. So we are happy to announce that number has reduced from 19 to 12. Okay, so moving right along on page number 2, if you can look at the chart at the top of the page, it's a more detailed breakout of which specific institutions still have not created their program report decks. And we are happy to announce that 4 of the institutions on that list have created their report deck, and that includes California State Polytech University Pomona, Los Angeles County Office of Education, Los Angeles Unified School District, and Monterey County Office of Education. And so if I can direct your attention really quickly to the insert that we just passed out, to the blue side, the page with the blue charts. It's a breakout of our preliminary programs. And the very first chart, you'll see a breakout of the credential program by delivery model. And then directly below that, you'll see the information broken out by segment, and then a description of how many programs are identified under each delivery model, okay? And then if you flip that over and you look at the reverse, so the other side with the green charts, it's a breakout of our education specialist instruction credential, And that very first chart covers the content subject area. And then again, it identifies how many programs are identified under each delivery model. And then directly below that is 4 additional charts broken out again by content subject area and then by delivery model. And we show the numbers for each segment. So LEA, CSU, UC, and private institution. So again, this is for your information and just for educational purposes.
What is so exciting from my point of view is we've never had this information before, ever. And so when you look at the front side or in the agenda item, you saw that there were over 1,200 programs out there. But now we kind of know how many are undergraduate, how many are postgraduate. And so we just wanted to kind of give you a teasing taste of what is in this new data system now. We don't have the data yet on each of these programs, but we actually do know a lot more about what programs are being offered out there.
Yeah, for us data nerds, this is great. Really good info.
Thanks, Terry. And so we just want to remind everyone that the actual data report is not due until August 15th, but we're trying to encourage institutions to create their program deck and start looking at those questions now. And so, which leads me into my next point, that we are continuously working with institutions to provide support to help them to move forward. For example, we hold office hours where institutions can just drop in and ask any questions that they may have on how to create a program report deck or how to interpret the data questions. And so we hold those office hours twice a week, every Tuesday and every Friday. And then we also have a CTC mailbox where people can send their questions, and I manage that. So it feels very good to know that institutions are beginning to get confident with what we're doing in the ADS. And so that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Information.
No? Okay.
No, it's outstanding information. Your enthusiasm is very catching.
And there are actually a few institutions that have already submitted their full report with their data,
That's great.
Including one who is run by one of the Committee on Accreditation members who made it clear at the last meeting he had already submitted all of his data. So
good job.
No, this is all great information. Yeah,
Could I add?
Yeah, sure, Jay.
I just want to say that from a program that submitted the data, it actually was very eye-opening for us to look at and then also to present to site administrators and our district administration as to the health of our program and what we need to look at and how are we meeting the needs of our students. So just from a program that I am overseeing, I found the process to be very helpful.
Great. That's good to know.
Yeah, that's really good info, yeah. Any other comments? All right, thank you both, Ms. Clark and Ms. Hill. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very well received. We have great information here.
Good job,
All right.
Terry. Good job, Nicole.
So we do have a time certain at 1 o'clock. What if we kept lunch to 45 minutes and then we can deal with the schedule right before 1 o'clock? Is that work?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's come back. Be sure we're ready to go at 12:45. All right, let's break for lunch.
comments in terms of site visit report?
Already. So if you took the January 31st, February 1st for the February meeting, then you could still do the March 20th, 29th maybe for the March meeting.
And it sounds like we miss Iris, but nobody else maybe.
And Jamal did tell me yesterday there are 10 fall winter site visits.
Yes. I've actually gone through the agenda to look at all the site visits to see we would get 10, and then if we did the earlier one, we'd get 11, that kind of thing. So I think we're okay on any of these dates, making it work. Now, we do have a question for our own boss, Terry Clark. You had mentioned that CCAC may be moved to November this current year. Well, that would be a year from now, right? So
But
2019?
It would be the November 2019, but I don't believe they're looking at October 31st to November 1st. I believe they were looking at the week in November.
Okay.
So the bolded week could be CCAC in 2019.
Okay, thank you. That's hot off the press information for us, so that's good.
All right, Member Morrison, did you have some comment?
My request, if possible, would be the May meeting. Sorry, the reason I missed it last time, it's right in the middle of AP testing, which is a big part of my job, and so if it's possible, the one before or the one after, either one would suit me better. Thank you.
Okay, generally with January 31st to February 1st. Yes, okay, so that sounds good. Got one. Calendars are the hardest thing. Okay, and then, oh, yay. Awesome. That would be great. And then March 28th, 29th, people are okay with that? All right. Except for Iris, okay. May 2-3. Uh-huh. Oh. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. So then May 2nd and 3rd sound okay?
March 29, 2029, I have a guest conducting engagement.
The 29th?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it sounds like neither one of those options work. So we might have to go into April. Well, April's hard too.
Can I ask a question?
23.
Yeah, of course.
Is it? Do you only want us looking at dates in March that are Thursday, Fridays? Is there a possibility of looking at other dates within that month, or is Thursday, Friday a must?
26, 27.
So we can do a little more digging then.
Good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
There a reason we didn't consider March? Oh, council's CCTE then, so we would have to actually go back. We would overlap with COC if we went to the 14th, 15th.
What'd you say? Okay. The 13th through the 15th, the COC is still a possibility. We don't engage with them in this room, but it's a parking issue. So we can certainly do the 13th through the 15th if everybody's okay with that. Or 14th, 15th? Is that Thursday, Friday? March. 13, 14?
14 is Pi Day. As in 3.1.
14, 15 is better. Fridays are generally better. So 14, 15. Okay, that. It's updated. Once, if you act on it, we'll put it on our website for the Committee on Accreditation.
And we'll also send you a list of the firm dates
Yes.
for the next year in your
course.
email. And the 3 new members will get the same list.
Exactly. All right, so it sounds like March 14th, 15th, followed by May 2nd through 3rd. All right, then we're in June. That is always the challenging one, believe it or not. It's extremely hard. So do we want to stick to the end of the month? Okay. 27th, 28th. And then August, now this is, we changed it to a Monday a couple of years ago just because it happened to work on a Monday, but we're not wedded to a Monday. So if that's too hard for people, you can't do Mondays, or you can't do any of them.
I can't do this Monday, the 6th.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're looking at the 19th.
Yes,
Yeah.
2019. Okay. So but you don't know for 2019 yet. Yeah. August 19th for now. I mean, we could always change it if we need to. Okay. All right. And then the last one is November.
Can we do the 5th? Does it make any difference to move it up? Oh, you said
We could do the 5th.
of August. You would like the 5th?
Hold on. Let me just make sure it's not the commission. August 1st and 2nd is the commission meeting. So the 5th was difficult. Okay, 6 might be better. Yep. Yes. Teleconference, yeah. The 6th, which would be a Tuesday, right? All righty. And then November, which it just boils down to those two as possibilities because the rest of them have, well, I guess 13th through 15th is a possibility too. But the commission is meeting the 21st, 22nd, and then you have, of course, Thanksgiving. So either October 31st through November 1st or November. And it's always hard on Halloween. You'd think that nobody would care about that, but it is very difficult. We stopped having site visits on that day because I couldn't get reviewers. And then 7th and 8th, everybody okay with that? All right. 7th and 8th. Thursday, Friday. So do you want me to read those back really quickly?
And Terry, that you don't think there's a conflict on the 7th and 8th with CCAC?
Well, once they know what their date is, maybe we could change it if we have to. Yeah. Okay, the dates seem to be starting in the beginning of 2019 are January 31st, February 1st, March 14th and 15th, May 2nd through 3rd, June 27th through 28th, August 6th, and November 7th and 8th. What was the what? May 2nd through 3rd. Okay, I think we need a motion and a second and a action.
Thank you. This is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve the calendar as stated by Ms. Hickey? I have a motion by Borges. Do I have a second? Second by Morrison. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yay. All right, so mark off item 19 that we're going to scooch back up to item 18. This is the discussion regarding a new accrediting body for educator preparation.
Let's make sure we have them on.
Are we good to go? All righty.
He's checking.
Oh, he's checking.
Mark, LaSalle, Peterson.
But Mark, we don't think is going to be on right away. So Linda McKee
and Sung T.
Sung T.
SUNGTI. Here, I'll go down.
There's Linda. I recognize Linda. His name. If you want to turn it to me, I will start.
Okay, we're going to have Ms. Clark start for us. Thank you, Ms. Clark.
So I was in attendance at the NASDAQ conference in Minneapolis the first week of June, and Mark LaSalle Peterson, who is the CEO of AQUIP. I now know how to pronounce the name here as far as I understand. AQUIP, right, Linda?
That's
Linda's
correct.
Nodding.
Yes.
Mark did a presentation on where AQUIP stands right now, and so you guys are always extremely interested in this. You have monitored NCATE, TIAC, and CAPE, and so we're bringing you more information now about this new accreditor, AQUIP. And they have a little different way of looking at accreditation. A lot of information in this agenda item is directly from their PowerPoint that they had at the meeting, and this does include the standards. They have 4 standards in their process, and they are working through their process. They are having 2 institutions host site visits this coming February and March. So I know you've read the agenda item, so it would be a good time for you if you have questions, if I know the answer. Otherwise, we would turn it over to the AQUIP folks who are going to be with us. I do think we may get 1 or 2 more of them as we go through this item.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Is that Linda McKee?
Yes.
Yes. Do we want to open it up to questions? Okay, does anybody have anything that I have questions? You guys have questions? Anybody? Okay, so there were a couple things on page 3. We talked about the accreditation decisions rely on professional judgment. So I was wondering what the definition of professional judgment. And then the bullet below that says a full accreditation term of 7 years, a shorter accreditation term signals problems. So I was wondering if, let's say somebody gets a 4-year accreditation term, did they go through the whole process again? And what does that look like?
Good questions. All right, thank you. You can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we can hear you quite well, Linda.
All right, good, thank you. There's a little bit of a delay, so I apologize. So the first question about the professional judgment is that we do consider this to be educators in the field. We are looking at involving people who have the experience, obviously with data analysis, experience with qualitative and quantitative evidence. We will go through a process. As a matter of fact, very similar. I have been looking at your own website, and very similar to what you have on your website for your own accreditation commission. We want to be very understanding about the use of the professional judgment to include not only people at a university, but also people who would be on the B12 side of it, helping them. We will have some training available for all of them so that, they're familiar with accreditation, with the accreditation process, and, help them to reach that level of comfort for everyone that, the professional judgment is there. Now, would you repeat your second question for me? Because I believe that Sungdi just joined us, and I'd like for him to hear the question also.
There we go. The bullet says full accreditation term of 7 years, shorter signals problems. So I'm guessing that is somebody could be awarded a shorter accreditation term of, let's say, 4 years. And I'm wondering if that's the case, would they go through the full accreditation cycle after 4 years?
So
process.
That's such an interesting question, because I don't believe that we've really worked through all the details of that at this moment. What we're in our conversations with our working groups, because again, this is being developed, the process is being developed by an entire group across the nation of people from universities and educator preparation programs and P12 educators. So that particular question would be one that we would want to come back and address once we get the Accreditation Commission together and really talk about our process in a little more detail.
I don't necessarily see it where we would be putting it out for a period of time of 4 years. We're firm believers in continuous improvement and working, using case managers, working with the staff in order to address some of the issues that may arise, within the report. So I would say it would depend upon the time of what would be the particular issue. If it's something where we can see the research and the evidence of making those changes, then it's probably going to be a shorter time frame. So I'm going to be very honest that we've not really worked with our support groups in order to come out with that specific timeline of what would be a particular issue and the timing on that. Sundee, when you're working with those groups, because I know that you were with the policy and procedures, did you all have more conversation about that particular part of it?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry that I'm late, first of all. No, we, like you said, I think the group right now is still trying to iron down all the details about how the timing will look like. But I think one thing that I would add is we, like Linda has said, that we really try to stress this process being a continuous improvement process, so that we don't wait till a certain time to make changes or make improvements, right? So every year through their annual reports or through the case managers, those changes will be made, and to address whatever that's being pointed out by the report of the site visit teams, whatever they point out that need to be improved. So.
Great, thank you. I had one other question for you. At the top of page 4, it says AQIP has identified innovations that it plans to use in its processes. And the second, it says cohort grouping, which I think is interesting, which is what we do actually by color. And then it says proposal process for feedback and clarity of expectations. I'm wondering about the innovation of that proposal process. What's unique and innovative about it? Can you share that with us?
Well, what we're doing is identifying a specific person. It could be a staff person, could be someone who is trained, particularly as a case manager, in order to assist the institution or the program through the process, through that continuous improvement process. We're also looking at an apprenticeship process, because we have a lot of accreditation coordinators, a lot of people in different programs who are very interested in learning from each other and even shadowing through the process so that they have a better idea of what that accreditation process looks like, what does it mean. And so that's another piece that we think is extremely important, that support piece, not just as a cohort, but the internal structure, and then the structure of the apprenticeship as a possible venue for them to learn.
And did you ask to explain? Did you ask us to explain to describe a little bit more about the proposal process? Is that one of your questions?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Did I go off on a tangent with that? I apologize.
So, okay, I'll go ahead and answer that question. So what we're looking at right now is about at year 3 of the cycle. Well, what we're looking at is a 7-year cycle of accreditation. And at year 3, we want the institutions to start developing. I think what might be familiar right now, it's called self-study, but this is kind of the early piece of self-study. The institutions will start working on this proposal to tell us what are they going to identify as their innovative approach, or whatever they're going to look at throughout this accreditation cycle, so that in the self-studies, they will be able to provide us with, this is what we are going to do, this is how we did it, this is the result, and is this a successful attempt or not? And if yes, why? If not, why? And so this is what we're looking at as proposal, because we wanted to really take the context of the institution very seriously. So we want to give the institutions this opportunity to look at whatever they think that they are, they need to work on during that accreditation cycle, rather than tell them, well, this is the thing that you need to work on, right? And so through this proposal process, we will be able to know in advance, okay, and approve essentially in at some degree that this is okay for you to work on. And then when it comes to the time of site visit, then we know and our teams know what they're looking at, rather than coming on campus being surprised and saying, well, I don't really see why I don't understand why you're doing this, right? So that's kind of the proposal. The idea of that proposal process is really to help the institutions self-identify the areas they want to work on, and help us understand why and how they're doing it and what the results might be. Linda, if you need to.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think that was much better than the direction I was going with it. So thank you, Sungmi. And again, I apologize that I
no
was
worries
reading there.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Member Pensaval.
Hi. So just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, so maybe this is for you and you. So this would be something that would integrate with the CTC accreditation. So CTC would be state and this would be national. And
it would be similar to how we've worked historically with NCATE and with TIAC, and how we're now working with CAPE. Okay. That if we had a California institution that says, I want to work with AQUIP, then we would work with them in even more depth to figure out the alignment matrix and how the activities meld together, and how we can not have an institution do double the work, but have the work that they're doing for accreditation serve two purposes. It would be a similar process.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Member Morrison.
So to follow up on that, Terry, where does this committee fit into that little scenario?
You as a body have the legal authority to determine if standards are equivalent. So if you go back to Appendix A in this agenda item, you'll see the 4 AQUIP standards. And these are designed to be parallel to your 5 common standards. So if we had an institution that wanted to work with AQUIP, we would analyze and bring to you an analysis that says, this is how we see these 2 sets of standards working together. You could adopt that, or you could modify it and adopt it. And then that says that when they meet things for AQUIP, they've met this part for the commission. You are still completely in the driver's seat for the California accreditation process, and a separate decision is made by this body for California accreditation. But the work that is done would also be used by the AQUIP body to make a decision about national accreditation.
Okay, well, this is an information item. Oh, we got one more comment, Ms. Erickson or Member Erickson.
Can you tell us when your anticipated approval from either CHIA or the U.S. Department of Education, any of those entities that we would need to interface with, is on the table?
Yes, we've already spoken with CHIA. The thing with CHIA, as I'm certain that you all know, is that you do have to have the data. And we have data of our own process. And so we do have up to 7 site visits that are planned for the spring of 2019, which would be giving us our data. We would be drafting the report to be submitted to CHIA in the fall of 2019. Right at this moment, CHIA is working through revising some of their own process. And so, where we are is we are ensuring that we are aligned with the existing standards and their existing process. So we can't submit until we have our own data also. The U.S. Department of Ed, we are as patiently as all others waiting for them to make some decisions about the Higher Ed Act. So what we again have done is to ensure that we are as aligned as possible at this moment with the existing Higher Ed Act. But until that
really comes into place with something a little firmer, we can't really, they're not accepting applications. So, as I'm sure you know, we are very aware of both and definitely plan on following through for both.
Great. Thank you. Member Briggs?
Forgive me if you said this and I missed it, because I just wonder what the stimulus is for your new approach to accreditation. What is it that why is it that you're pursuing an accreditation process? What is it that doesn't already exist out there? Why do we need another one? So what's the drive behind this?
Right. So the drive behind it originally was that states contacted us and asked us for another process. And they asked for the process to be in place that would be more contextual in relationship with the institutions and the EPPs. That would be, respectful of their context and the differences that they, have developed in their programs. That we would be understanding of innovations that when they are doing research and really looking at perhaps making some changes and some revisions to their programs, that we would be understanding of that particular area. We are looking at, as you've noted, that we're looking at building out the cohorts. So it's a support process that we're trying to put in place. We're also very appreciative of the continuous improvement process and how we can support that process for the programs. So all of these are areas where states approached us and asked us if we could ensure that there was an accreditor that would be available to really respect that.
I notice in Standard 2, you have a statement about working in a variety of contexts, and it relates to cultural contexts. But then you also include a statement that says candidates must have broad general knowledge of the impact of culture and language on learning, yet they cannot, within the context of any given program, experience working with the entire diversity of student identities or in all types of school environments. And I guess I was wondering about the inclusion of that explanation, and if there had been a concern that there was too much emphasis placed on meeting specific expectations related to cultural experiences that our candidates in general experience in their preparation.
So if I may, I will try to address your concern there. We wrote that specifically because there is a poll here currently in the field that, one, we want the candidates to be able to be trained for specific type of settings, for example, urban settings, so they can go in and work well with urban school districts, right? But on the other hand, there's a poll to make sure that the candidates are prepared more globally, so that they can be prepared. They can down the road, in whatever setting they choose, they will be a successful teacher. So the reason why we wrote it that way is so that we can address both ends of the spectrum. We're trying to address that so that the schools, knowing that the EPPs would know that they need to provide as much global cultural awareness to the students as much as possible, but still address the context within which they're working under, which might be the state is asking, well, I want your candidates to be able to do XYZ in certain type of settings. And that's the reason why it's written that way.
Great. Thank you. All right. Any other last comments? Well, I'm sure we look forward to seeing how this process is operationalized in your future visits, and perhaps we'll bring you back and have some more questions for you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Before we move on to our next item, which is going to be item 15, I wanted to just revisit the calendar item just a little bit. Just going forward, thinking about our full days that we have here
And if you get back to your site and you've got like, well, I can only do a half day for these 3 visits, or maybe I can't do that visit, can we actually put an item on the August agenda for if we need to revise? Can we do that? Because
Sure.
I know that I'm going to get back to my site and have all these thoughts and ideas, or my calendar's going to be in front of me, and I'm going to be thinking, you know what? I can't get there till noon, and we really need to try and have a full committee here together for our meetings. So if we can do that, then we can.
Sure, absolutely. And if
go
you
for
can
that.
email us if you know, because then we can start thinking about it. That would be great.
Okay.
Sure.
Great. Thank you. All right. Item 15 is the report on the required follow-up for Montebello Unified School District. Consultant Gary Roby will introduce this item. Joining her at the table are institutional representatives Dr. Anthony J. Martinez, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Angel Gallardo, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources Division, and joining by technology is Patty here?
Yes.
I hear her. Patty Saucedo Mays and Angelica Paz. I think I saw them earlier.
Yes. We're trying to get the video on. So
Does anybody need to recuse themselves? Okay, Member Webb, recusing. There they are. All right. Ms. Roby, will you begin, please?
yes, thank you very much. This is the first of a series of reports from Montebello Unified School District. They held a site visit in March of 2018, and when the report was heard by the Committee on Accreditation, they were given a probationary status, accreditation with probationary status. One of the 6 stipulations put on them was to provide a report within 20 days, May the 25th, to show that they were in alignment for the preconditions that were found not to be in alignment during the site visit, and as well a notification letter to be sent out to each of their candidates, letting them know of the status of accreditation with probationary status. So you will see in the appendices here attached, Appendix A is the letter that they sent out. Appendix B talks about the precondition pieces. So if you will indulge me, I'll walk through it for you. Also, having folks in the room to answer the detailed questions is really nice as well. We started together with a group meeting where we talked through the who, the what, the why, the whens, and the preconditions and things. So they established some, in my opinion, some pretty strong collaboration pieces between the program itself and the Human Resources Department, and who was going to be responsible for what on these very vital accreditation pieces that are checklists and monitoring, and how are we doing as we progress through the year. One of the unusual things that you asked them to do, and I had never heard it done before, was you asked them to seek other programs to see how they had done it there and if they could get some insights and that would help them. I introduced them to 5 programs who had no compunction to visit with them. All 5 of them said, sure, come on down, come on over, spend the day. We'll open our files. If you want any of our text things, come take it, whatever. One of those is in the room, but recused himself from here, from the table. And the ladies who are with us electronically have just been so appreciative of that. And I have watched the communication go between the hosts and their visits, and they have learned a lot, which they brought back. And Drs. Gallardo and Martinez were able to use that to strengthen what they were doing in Montebello. You've read the report. If there's any reason for me to go through the preconditions, I will, but you can see that all the pieces are there now, including a monitoring document at the program level, as well as the oversight of Dr. Gallardo and Human Resources and Dr. Martinez for the whole program.
Terrific. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on the institution to make a few comments.
Sorry. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity again. I think it has been quite an extraordinary learning curve for us in the sense that we are new in the process of including all of us in this new induction for us as a process. It has been tremendous help from the CDE, from GAY, and from all of our ladies who are in our district, Patty and Miss Mays. We, I think, have strengthened and delineated the personnel who's going to be working and overseeing and collaborating with the induction. We have in HR the HR manager who will be communicating very quickly as soon as people get hired, notifying the induction, as well as Stacy Honda, who is the Assistant Director of Ed Services, to oversee the program and the induction program. She has a lot of background as a high school teacher, a high school assistant principal, and as a high school principal herself. So she is pretty versed in all these steps. So aside from that, I just want to thank you. I know that if you have specific questions, I will be more than happy to explain. We've strengthened all our processes in HR to communicate and to convey our commitment to the program, to our employees, to our teachers in completing this process.
Great, thank you. Anybody else from the institution want to say a few words?
So I just also, on behalf of our Board of Education, we did make them aware of our visit. I want to extend their appreciation for giving us the opportunity to continue with the program. Our board is very aware and that such program is a benefit to our teachers, especially since we are able to clear credentials for not only our general subject credentials, but also those with the educational specialist. As was anticipated, we immediately started working on the to-dos that the COA pretty much tasked us with. We still are in the process, but it was very rewarding to see that our colleagues back at the school district were also expressing interest in serving as mentors for our aspiring teachers. We also went ahead and pursued posting an additional teacher on special assignment position so that we can have that variety and those additional, particularly if some of the challenges were brought up that were mentioned during our last meeting. So we are very appreciative of the opportunity and very much appreciate Gay making herself available and meeting with us immediately to give us some suggestions as to what we need to do. On behalf of the students that receive the services from our teachers, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and for not only giving us, I guess, making us aware of what your expectation is, but also providing the support. And by the support, making the other, or I guess suggesting that we reach out to other partners in other school districts that are running such a program, because I think by working together, it's meeting the task that you expect as a COA. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to Ms. Roby.
My apologies. One very important one important question that you asked us before.
Whoever is talking out in the field, could you mute your microphone? Thank you.
One of the questions that was asked the last time that we were here is about the mentors for the program and for the candidates that come forth. We have, as at this point, 24 mentors, pre-K to special ed, all throughout from the different and various subject matters. And I think that's a point that I omitted to mention before. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. I'd like to open the floor to the Committee on Accreditation to ask any questions. I've got one. Member Riggs, thank you.
I just wanted to say that reading the words on the letter from Dr. Martinez is just very reassuring. And it actually seems to model for how a unit head can be completely aware of what the requirements are for a licensure program that for which the unit head is responsible. And it just, it gives me great confidence that you're well on your way. It's really nice to see. And I appreciate how seriously you pursued this. I'm sure it wasn't easy to do all of the work you've already started in such a short amount of time. So greatly appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Any other? Yes, Member Forbes.
Well, I'll just echo that as well. I enjoyed reading it, and I really learned a lot from the documents that you linked as well. So it looks like you're off to a good start with the necessary tools and putting the infrastructure in place to make the change happen. So good work.
Terrific. Thank you. This is an action item. Do I have a motion? If there are no other comments, I have a motion by Member Erickson. Oop. Oh, did you want to say something?
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. We just really want to reiterate what Dr. Martinez and Dr. Gallardo have mentioned, but also thank Gay for continued support through this and express our appreciation to the induction programs that we actually were able to meet with. They provided a lot of information, insights to each of the individual programs, and their staff has been, they've welcomed us in terms of mentoring. We feel extremely appreciative, and the information again has been very valuable as we continue to evaluate our own current induction program and make the improvements for the forms, the process. And really, we've seen some improvement with the spring semester from the March review to the May meeting. We have been very transparent, and it has been appreciated by the candidates themselves. They provided a lot of feedback in terms of the changes that we made, and it has been, I think, very valuable to their own professional growth. So we wanted to thank Dr.
Thank you.
We wanted to thank
Ditto. Okay. All right. Thank you. Are we ready to make a motion by Member Erickson? Is there a second? Second by Member Pensaval. All those in favor say aye. The motion is to accept the report and the recommendation. We'll see them back for their next report. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, and we'll see you again. Good work. Nice job.
Oh, no. You got it.
Okay, so that was item 15. I think we're going to go to item 14. Are you ready for that? Is the report of the required follow-up from La Mesa Spring Valley Unified School District. Ms. Hickey, you're going to do that item for Ms. Sacramento?
Yes, Ms. Sacramento is off today.
Okay. Does anyone need to recuse themselves?
And this is a quick one.
This is an action item?
Right.
Yes.
So this is the one you will recall that when they came to you, what the team found was that the bargaining contract was in violation of state law in and around this around induction. And so the issue was that they had met already before they had come before you. They had met already and had determined where in the contract it needed to be changed, but the vote had not taken place yet. So this is just an update. You had asked for an update. They ratified this, so there is a new verbiage in the contract. They have since asked to go inactive. And as they say here in their letter, if you look at their letter, they say the additional findings will be addressed when our district decides to reactivate. And I actually think we need to work with the institution on this because I'm not willing to let stipulations sit on the books for 5 years. So I just wanted you to know that we will be working with them to figure out what they plan to do. Is their connection with San Diego a more permanent solution, or what they plan to do? So Karen will continue to work with them, and we will bring you back something sooner than probably in the next couple of months about what we've heard, what we found out as they work through this process. So that is it. I don't think that
we need to have an action on this?
You can accept this, I believe. I'm sorry about that. Yes. If you want to accept the report, that would be fine.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the report? I have a motion by Member Alvarado, a second by Member Balatayo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And safe travels to two of our members who are on their way. What item haven't we done yet? 16. Okay. Item 16 is a discussion related to identifying exemplary practices. Director Terry Clark will present this information item. Ms. Clark, will you begin, please?
Yes, this item is coming back to you. You discussed this topic at your May meeting, and we changed from exemplary programs to identifying program exemplars. So we have looked at and kind of reframed this process with that twist in the thinking. We've identified a process that we would suggest that institutions that are interested go through. And so we're really coming back to you to say, does this plan look like it's pretty well cooked, and would you like us to pilot it?
Reading my notes. Sorry about that. Member Riggs.
You know, I was so uncomfortable with this whole thing from the beginning, and I was really pleased to read this because I felt like it really captured what we discussed, and it really did include this twist, and I wonder how it will be received by the commission, but I feel like it represents well what the discussion was, and also a product that would be really helpful to the state and our institutions.
Member Pensable.
So I wasn't here for the last conversation, but this isn't the first time this conversation has come up. We've talked about exemplary programs before, and I have never been in favor of exemplary programs because I think teaching should be collaborative and we shouldn't be competing with each other. But I think when we flip it and we talk about programs that meet a set of criteria or exemplars, I feel a lot more comfortable with that, and it becomes a personal best rather than competing against other programs. So I like this a lot better.
Member Forbes and then Member Webb.
Having also shared that nervousness in many occasions about the exemplary program designation, I also thought this was a very welcome change. It emphasizes the whole spirit of continuous improvement as opposed to mere compliant. Well, not mere, but as important as compliance is, it really goes to that spirit of continuous improvement. And I think we just saw a good example in the last discussion about the district where they were collaborating with other institutions, and this would be a perfect opportunity to put that kind of thing into practice, you know, in a situation where there was a need for improvement on the part of one of the groups that comes before us, as well as when an institution just wants to try something new or to improve or to look for those exemplars.
And then what I was going to add is that I think that with the way the accreditation system was strengthened and streamlined to include annual analysis of data, also with the establishment of the annual data submissions, I think that that will continue to add another layer of not just looking at an exemplary program getting a pass, but instead, what is it that is in place that makes it, you know, strength? And then also, what do you continuously use in your annual data submissions that are going to allow you to make further decisions to look at program improvement?
Any other? I actually have a few questions or comments. Forgive me for just a second. I love the constraining the focus initially to general ed teacher prep and administrator prep. I think is a good idea just to start off small that way. Not that that's small, but let's see. And then I was curious as to the thinking around granted the status for 1 year, the year after the accreditation site visit. So is it possible we might think it could have that status for more than 1 year?
Our logic and what we talked about, and again, this is another item that all of the accreditation staff worked on and reviewed. This is not my work at all. It is our whole team. Our thinking was that it's most valid to say you hold program exemplar status for 1 year, not that we would remove your information from the web page about program exemplars. So there would be the 17-18 exemplars would continue to stay there. So if someone has a question about a concept that one of those programs really had a great way to address it, they would still see it. But the new programs of the next year would be the program exemplars for that next year. So it's not that you keep it for 1 year and you have to do your service, which is serving on the selection panel for the next year. But you would still be identified as that you were a program exemplar.
So I'm just doing a little visualizing. We're on the website and we have these year bands, 16, 17, 17, 18. And then people who had exemplars around equity in education, or recruitment around equity, or teaching the TPA, preparing for CalAPA. So those might be the things. So there'd be the institution and the practice that gave results that were deemed exemplary. Preparing a presentation for the commission or the COA, I was a little concerned about that being a requirement. I think it's an option that could be provided, but making it a requirement, I don't know if that's necessary. And yep, I just had one more. I gotta go ahead, Balatayo.
Just to piggyback on that question with the presentation and the all of the other required, that was just for that 1 year, correct? Yeah. And then when they're archived or, placed into that exemplary status, they're no longer beholden to that requirement. Okay, yeah.
Okay, Member Pensaval and Member Erickson.
And so it would be this committee that would decide the programs that show exemplary
That's
status?
one of the questions for you, because we're proposing that a selection committee be formed. And actually, my recommendation to you is that you appoint James Webb to be the initial member of the selection committee, since he served on the accreditation work group and he's no longer going to be on the COA. I think it makes a lot of sense for him. And he runs a, and I didn't tell him that ahead of time, but he runs and understands both the teacher and administrator induction program. There is an option. The selection committee could make the final decision and you are just notified of their decisions, or the selection committee could recommend to you and then you make decisions. And we have staff that feel both ways would be appropriate. Because this is not truly part of accreditation, it is above and beyond accreditation. One logic is that you are just notified that this is who the selection committee has identified. And of course, in future years, if you wanted to change that, you could. So I think that is what we're recommending to you, is that you have the selection committee actually make the decision this first time. We will notify you in an agenda item, probably at the November meeting, and then you would decide in future years if you want to take that decision making into your control or if you're still comfortable with it being the selection committee.
Sorry, yes, Member Alvarado, and then Member Riggs.
So, or you could look at it the other way, where initially we have the approval, and then if it's consistent with what we're envisioning, then it can be delegated to the selection committee. But at least the entirety of the COA has, at least initially, or even the first few cycles, just the opportunity to oversee this. And then if it's rolling out the way we envision it, then it makes sense that at some point then it goes to the committee, and then for us just to be notified.
Okay, Member Riggs.
I think an important aspect of it is that it not be perceived as biased in any way. And so starting with the COA, I like your proposal related to that. I have one other question, just making sure that I understand the eligibility requirements where it says all standards met. Is met with concerns met?
Met with concerns is a portion of met, yes. It does seem to make sense that they would have to make the case that they're there, that it seems that if it were a program standard for the specific program that they are submitting, that's going to be a little more tenuous, because if it's not fully met, it may be hard to find that program to be a program exemplar. But right, our definition has always been that standards met with concerns are met.
Yes, Member Erickson.
Just a clarification, when we're talking about program exemplars, and you just mentioned a whole host of things that don't necessarily include data that might be on the data dashboard. So say we have a very good administrative program that's bringing in many, many diverse candidates, but we might not be at 100% on CalAPA. I could still go ahead and submit my program for an exemplary or an exemplar program exemplar, because we really want to ensure that we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater when we're trying to increase diversity or equity into our programs and then have it be based on one measure or a limited parameter.
That's accurate, that it's as broad an approach, and there's an area that this program is doing an exemplary job, and that's what we want to have be knowledgeable and able to be shared among the community.
I just need to clarify something that you said. So you're talking about if it's the year of your site visit and all program standards were met, could you still apply? Is that what you were asking? Or are you saying separate from that? Okay. Great. Mm-hmm. That's what I understood you to say, but because you didn't have the preamble of, I thought, okay, have we introduced some new idea? Okay, thank you so much, Deb.
Member Forbes.
Well, and to me, that's a perfect example of how this is different than exemplary program, which would imply that everything that they did was somehow, blessed.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do, certain components really well, and then the other ones we're working on as we move along.
I think so, that you have to submit your program.
This is an action item. Does anybody want to make a motion?
And I think the motion we're looking for is for you to direct us to do a pilot based on the 17-18 accreditation visits, and in the motion to actually tell us, are the recommendations coming to you for decision, or is the selection panel making the decisions? I think those are kind of the two key things we need to hear from you if you're interested in this being piloted this year.
Member Riggs?
So may I ask a question about the decision part? Because I'm perfectly fine with you doing a pilot. But related to the decision, it almost seems like the recommendation would still come to this group from the selection committee. And then we would it's just like what happens now with the accreditation decision. So I'm not seeing this committee as doing all of the review, but seeing a justification from the selection committee as to why they decided to recommend or not recommend or whatever. I don't think it's possible for this group to take on the review of all the applications.
Sure. Member Webb?
And to echo what Iris just said, I agree. I think that it would almost be somewhat like a accreditation site report, and then maybe whoever the chair of the selection committee is maybe appears before I'm not. I mean, in a way, I'm just, thinking, because I do think that there needs to be the oversight by the COA, but I don't know necessarily with all the other tasks that this committee has that could be something that they could take on. But I think if you charge a selection committee to take on this process, it would still be vested by the COA, but would be under the same guise of asking the questions and getting the feedback to know that you're making an informed decision.
Okay, Ms. Carney?
It also does more than just change the workload. This is the body that makes accreditation decisions, and this is not accreditation. And so that layer, whether the final decision's made by them and and you're confirming it, or being informed about it, or whether it's a recommendation that you're accepting, that layer of it being a little bit removed from accreditation is an additional reason why the selection committee, it's more than just workload.
I know that in school districts, frequently the school board will just acknowledge an item. It doesn't have to, it's like ratified. I wonder if that might be the direction we're going. Member Alvarado?
But the last time we talked about it, and this document certainly reflects that last conversation, it was that, and I haven't been a member of this group that long, but in the short time I've been here, I think there's been a clear consensus in terms of when we see just incredible practices being implemented. And I think that that's the role that the COA plays in confirming what this selection committee is recommending, and then the COA is affirming. But again, it's because we get to see the programs, we get to review the programs. So in that sense, I think it still needs to be the COA. My opinion.
You know,
I'm sorry if I was
really
confusing. I wasn't arguing one way or the other. I was just saying that the selection committee gives you that extra layer separate from prior to the decision. Okay.
The folks that really get to see and review the committee are the site visit teams. They're the ones that are walking away going, wow, that was really amazing. Is there an opportunity, a little checkbox on one of the things that they might want to submit one of their program components? I know it's getting kind of messy there, but
the challenge, we were trying to keep it away from the BIR members because we have tried to train them so carefully to judge it against the standard, I would like to add one more aspect that you could consider in a motion is that you could state that the co-chairs would actually work with us to finalize who's on the selection committee, because we need to still do that. And so we could come up with a list of suggested names, work with Bob and Anna to finalize that selection committee, because we were planning to do that this summer if you do tell us to move ahead.
Member Briggs?
And you've probably already thought of this, but just related to the selection committee, I see it, they would come from the prior year's exemplars eventually, but just like we recuse ourselves, and then I think that would be a part of the process, but also having representation across K-12 or pre-K-12 and IHEs, just like we look for K-12 on IHE review, we look for IHE participation and induction, those kinds of things. Is it an all CSU panel? You know, we don't want to see all of that kind of stuff.
The approach would definitely be to go and have people on the selection panel from all the segments that offer educator preparation and the different types of programs. And Cheryl actually runs a similar process with the nomination panel for the COA members, is that we have, you know, K-12 and higher ed people. We have people appointed by the commission and by the COA, and they meet it together and talk about what they've reviewed. So that would definitely be our approach here too.
So we need to put together a motion. So far we have that we are going to approve a pilot program, that the co-chairs will be involved in this initial selection process, that the exemplars will come to the Committee on Accreditation for acknowledgement. Or for approval.
I heard for approval.
Okay, for approval.
This first time.
Okay. Yes, Member Forbes.
And that wouldn't necessarily be all the exemplars. It would be the ones that were recommended, right?
Mm-hmm.
There might be some that aren't vetted.
Yeah, they get called out.
The committee's purpose would be to vet those.
It would be the ones that the committee agrees should be considered for program exemplars. If they see something and says, this, I don't think so, and they move it out, that would not come to you.
Okay. So I make a motion. What I said? No, I'm just kidding. Remember. If he is willing. Maybe we should maybe we should leave that out of the motion at this time. Okay. I have a motion by Member Erickson, a second by Member Pensaval. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well done. CTC, PSD.
Well, your conversation on this item at the May meeting was extremely helpful. It made refiguring this item and very, very easy to do, because you really had a good, rich conversation for us.
All right. Thank you. It's exciting. It's a great way for us to share what we're doing and get it into that that community, that we're all supporting children and educators rather than I have best, yours is different or whatnot. So I believe, and Cheryl, can you check have all the X's by the items because we've jumped around so much today? Yes, I got that next. So item 19 is public. Unless there was someone online. Does any member of the public have anything it wishes to say? Okay, there are no comments. Item 21 is the debrief accreditation decisions, and Ms. Hickey will present this item. We're not doing that one. It's in there.
I apologize.
All right, adjourn. Now, having no further business.
Wait.
Nope.
I don't know if you want to debrief, so we're turning it on.
We're going to debrief with the mic off. So, but I wanted to adjourn the meeting. There. The next meeting will be on August 6, 2018.